Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Overwatch Carbon Series. I'm Gil Frost, and I'm very excited for some Overwatch action today. But before we get too deep into it, I do have an announcement. We normally have 2 matches each night, but due to some unforeseen circumstances affecting all of Detroit, basically, as far as I know, I'm no power expert, but Detroit is out of power right now, and so it is affecting one of our teams. The Detroit Renegades are unable to play tonight, and due to the fact that it's essentially a natural disaster, something that's completely out of their control, they couldn't even go somewhere else. It wasn't like just their neighborhood. It's the whole city. We're exploring other options for getting that game to you and getting them on the field of battle, but it's not going to be happening tonight. So we are going to be only having one matchup. Detroit Renegades and Immortals will play later, but tonight we are going to have LG Loyal facing off against compLexity, and so we're going to be bringing you that in just a sec. But first, ZP, Hex, how are we doing today?
Doing good. We are not getting hit by the winds of God here in Denver, so presumably we will have power for most of the broadcast, though now that I have said that, we watched the blackout happen, and suddenly we don't have power, so I'm going to try not to jinx us. But other than that, pretty good.
Doing great. A little disappointing we don't have 2 matches. Of course, I'm always excited to cast Overwatch, but hope everything is going as good as it can in Detroit. Hope everything's okay.
Yeah, no, and we're all hoping that the power gets back soon, because as it turns out, we live in a world that very much needs power.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that these teams and all the people there can feel safer as moving forward. But let's take a look forward right now for what we've got on tap. And I guess actually maybe before we do that, let's take a look at what happened yesterday here at the Overwatch Carbon Series.
The support backline for LG Evil getting absolutely throttled. Oh, goodbye, Nash. Hits 2 immediately and sets up Torque for a mammoth tack visor, going to easily take this point. Torque just basically throwing his life.
As we learn some about these new players, we'll see what Nesh can get done on his Dragon Blade. Here it comes.
Dragon Blade coming in. It is high noon as Jake picks up 3. Sometimes all you need is a cowboy. He gets the 4th for good measure. Death and destruction left in Jake's wake.
Deadeye's gonna come in, try to get something. The sound barrier gonna make it much more difficult. Still finds 2.
And Hex, they might not even need it. Nash, gonna try and be the difference maker here. No. Late Blizzard coming out here. No one dying to Blizzard yet, but oh, AZK gets hammered.
That's not the rocket that usually goes for.
This is where Widow on offense can be really scary. And Team Liquid now, 10% left to try to contest this out. And the flanking Earth Shatter is big. Suddenly, Renegades catch them off guard. Resurrection, though, gonna come in here from Team Liquid, and they are all in on keeping them back, and Shatter picks up 2.
Here comes Shatter.
Shatter coming in. Dragon Blade out, has 1, has 2. Liquid on the verge of taking Dorado. Hex, this would be huge for them. A nice reflect kill towards the very end.
Getting enough kills to get momentum. Let's see him.
Going through, and 1 rocket, 2 rocket. Goodbye, Shatter. More pressure onto the point. Does get on the Diva with that rocket. And now Team Liquid on their last legs. This is looking like a 2nd point take. Looking for his opportunity. Unleashes it in the backline, but gets a little bit confused as where they go, but finds Ana at the very end. Mezar is down. 3 kills here from Renegades, as Renegades for the duel, but the Pulse Bomb! AZK gets the Pulse Bomb, but the Resurrection going to undo his dirty work. He is going to fall, and Liquid, it was valiant.
A lot of great action yesterday. Let's take a look actually at the standings coming in to this final day of week 3, because we were actually expecting a lot to potentially change coming into today's matches. And while we're only going to have 1, there actually is still quite the fight on the line. But we noticed looking at this that the 2 tiers are somewhat starting to form. We've got LG Evil firmly at the top. And even though their score says 6-0, the way they've been playing has been maybe even stronger, if you can believe that. But then underneath that, we've got Renegades and compLexity, and Immortals kind of in that mid section there. Renegades at 4-1, compLexity and Immortals at 2 and 3 each. LG Loyal, they're at 1 and 4. Today they're going to be trying to bring that into the middle of the pack with a hopeful victory for them against compLexity. Team Liquid struggling to find themselves at 1-5. Taking a look at the standings and coming into this matchup, how are we feeling about the standings?
I think you nailed it. Liquid had the chance yesterday to rejoin the pack. They did not deliver on that, but it is a huge game for LG Loyal to be able to go to 2 wins and then knock complexity down with them and firmly muddle up that middle and rejoin everyone else in there.
LG Loyal would be giving themselves some very important breathing room versus Team Liquid if they were able to take this matchup. Now, of course, you think about it here, we do have roster changes coming in for LG Loyal, so we'll expand upon that in a moment, but it's hard to really predict where this is going to go because both compLexity and LG Loyal are working with very modified rosters for what we've seen in earlier weeks of play in the OCS.
Yeah, a lot of tinkering going on, and we haven't seen it up until this point from LG Loyal, but we are going to be going into that matchup right now. LG Loyal versus compLexity, and high level, yeah, as we had mentioned, these guys are 1 game away from each other, and not only that, but it's a pretty tight middle of the pack, and so really it's still anybody's tournament hope. Getting into the playoffs is still hopeful for any of these teams. It's looking a little hairy for Liquid, but even they could potentially turn it around. They need to get some key victories in the upcoming weeks. And another thing to just mention before we get too much into this matchup, by the way, is Renegade still has to play Hammers twice. So that's potentially 2 difficult games that you could, and I'm not going to chalk them as losses right now, but definitely going to be on people's minds coming into the next couple of weeks. But let's take a look at LG Loyal's roster because it would be really hard to talk about this matchup in general without looking at some of these new players. So, of course, you may recognize Ube, Spree, Super Pluke, and Hidan. The 2 new names, if you haven't paid attention to historical Overwatch in Europe, are Hardest, who's going to be playing Flex DPS, and then Reels is going to be supposedly on that Lucio. Of course, we really don't know what to expect from these 2. Looking at that, though, I mean, do we have any guesses as to what we're going to see?
Well, I think a lot of it was perhaps change for change's sake because you had to do something, but we didn't think necessarily that Icefeld was playing poorly or that Mineral was playing poorly. You have to imagine that Reels is coming in on the Lucio to change up shot calling. That's generally where the shot caller lies. It's one of the easiest heroes to shot call from, but I didn't think either of them were necessarily playing bad, but it doesn't matter. If team chemistry isn't there and you're not winning games, you have to make changes. They did. We'll see what they do tonight.
There is some degree of irony when you have this moment where you rename your team to LG Loyal, and then suddenly, immediately after doing that, you cut 2 of your players. Well, that being said, it is probably the right move. As you mentioned, they do need to change something here, and perhaps it'll deal with some of the inconsistency they've had in who's playing what, because now Ube is not going to be going back and forth with Icefeld on, is he playing Tracer? Is he playing 76? Maybe this is an opportunity here for LG Loyal to reset and perhaps get a little bit more stability. We don't know how the internals of the team are working, but I would say in regards to Mineral, it didn't feel like Mineral was doing anything wrong from our perspective. It wasn't something that we would call out much on LG, but we don't know the internals of what was going on there either. So for LG Loyal, maybe they felt like they needed a different shot calling presence. It's hard to say.
And then that's the thing about Lucio is the things are so many intangibles come with that role, and so assumptions have to be made that there's something going on that we can't necessarily see because it wasn't necessarily his play that was obviously lacking. But also, we also don't really know what's happening. I mean, it sounds like these are tryouts coming into this game, so who knows what'll happen to the rest of the team. But we're going to find out at least how these guys perform today as they're facing off against compLexity. The player to watch before we go into compLexity, though, for LG Loyal is going to be Ube. And we've talked a lot throughout this event, the importance of your damage dealers, and someone who's been a little bit back and forth is Ube. Talk through Ube. We have Roadhog as his hero there. It hasn't been what he's always been playing, but what are we expecting from Ube?
Well, the reason why Roadhog would be his hero there is that you look back when Ube first made his fame on the scene. It was back when Roadhog was very much in vogue, and he was playing Roadhog in most games. Very impactful Roadhog. Other than that, his hero pool has been pretty much all over the place. A little bit of 76, a little bit of Tracer, Genji, Pharah. I mean, he's really gone through the hero roulette. As far as what he's strongest on, I'd say Roadhog is still one of his very best heroes. Genji has hit or miss moments for him. I would not classify him as a really top tier Genji, but he has moments where he can actually break through. So if he could find those moments more frequently, that would certainly be good for LG.
Yeah, Roadhog very clearly his best hero, in my opinion. I've said it every time we talk about Ube. I think they do best when he's on it. Although with the roster shaking up now, it's really impossible to say what anyone's going to play. That's been an issue with LG Loyal for a long time. What is Hardest going to play? What is his mains? Does he play the Tracer? So really, it's impossible to say what Ube is going to be on. Of course, he has a deep pool, but it's not necessarily the giant hero mode pool that some of the other DPS in the tournament have.
Yeah.
To go to one of your references, you called at one point for the TJOs on compLexity. You said, well, they're Marios. They can play a lot of things, but they're not super exceptional at anything.
Right.
Ube right now is definitely trending towards Mario territory.
Right.
Yeah, and we've even talked about their roster in general, like a lot of weird swaps and like just a little disjoint in a lot of ways. And maybe, and there's multiple reasons that could happen. It could be the comfort of like your players playing these heroes and like, well, how do we make this work? And so certainly having a new DPS player can help with that. And it could also be like, well, in that moment, as we're trying to build our comps, to counter what we're seeing or to gain an advantage, well, that also leads to potentially shot calling. So I'm curious to see how these augmentations to their roster do affect just the feel of this Luminosity or this LG roster, as we've had some questions about them. Another team that we've had some questions about, compLexity, and they are going to be our home team coming into this matchup. So let's take a look at their roster. And this is day 2 of this roster. So they have been had a little bit of roster ADD. Torque and Nicholas, of course, names you've been very familiar with. Joe Meister and Shake as well. It's Nesh and Meza that are the newbies coming in there. We saw them yesterday. So let's walk through these guys. ZP, what did you see from Nesh and Meza yesterday?
Well, Nesh in particular, what we saw from him is that he's giving a much stronger Genji threat to compLexity that they have never had. He was pretty remarkably consistent on it, and even though they weren't able to take down LG Evil, it still was a very good showing from Nesh and gave compLexity some options that they never really had. I think that Nesh being on this roster actually gives them a pretty convincing 3 DPS setup. And going into this matchup, though they are coming off the loss with LG Evil, I think that they're going to fare much better here against LG Loyal.
They were fine, in my opinion. I think the new additions were fine beyond what you mentioned with Genji. The tank play was not a liability, not world-breaking, but for being new to the roster, that's good. I'm just glad to see that compLexity has the same roster for 2 days in a row. Actually, I did ask that question when I got here. Is compLexity have the same roster? Because they've been trying things out, and it's really hard to build a consistent Overwatch team when you don't have consistent rosters. It's hard to have consistent results.
And one thing that I think would be interesting here, if you could mix and match from the recent compLexity additions, and I don't think they're going to be able to do this, mind you, and it's no knock on Bishu, who's now off to lands unknown, but I do think if they could have gotten a dream set where they had Nesh and Decop, that would actually be very impressive. But we'll see if Meza can grow into his role here with compLexity as time goes forward.
Yeah, because once again, he wasn't standing out terribly much. But he wasn't a terrible liability. He did have a few early deaths on Winston, but that's something that also relies a lot on your team. You can't necessarily pin that on him. And it's also something that as you do grow more comfortable with your teammates, it becomes a little bit easier. And especially, if you're talking about a new team, like they just added 2 potential dive members. They were playing Genji and Winston at moments. And that's 2 very integral pieces of something that has to go all right for it to be very effective. And they were definitely looking better as the series progressed yesterday. Well, a player to watch for compLexity is going to be Torque. And we actually picked him, but we talk about potential off tanks and like, well, do you run the 2 DPS, 3 DPS? Do you the 2-2-2, 3 tank? Like, what are the things you need? And having someone who can hop on Roadhog seems like it's very important right now, especially with some of the changes that have happened around him. So what are we expecting from Torque? Are we going to see him on the Roadhog compared to some of the other Roadhog players we've seen? Or
throughout the tournament, Torque's played very well. I think to the surprise of some people, he's been more consistent this tournament than I've seen him in previous months. And I think he should play some Roadhog. He had some of his best moments again on Roadhog. I know I'm sounding like an advocate for it, but Roadhog's still really good. Getting someone dead before a fight even starts from a mile away because that hook is great, and now his primary is better. So even though the hook is on a longer cooldown, he's still able to do a lot of damage. We've seen him miss hooks on tracers and then right clicker, and she's gone. So I think Roadhog is a viable pick in a lot of compositions.
The very promising thing that we saw from the last match compLexity had was that both Nicholas and Torque had far better offerings than we've really been used to seeing from them, because compLexity has definitely gone through periods where you think back to the Hard Blue era, you actually saw compLexity not really getting that much from Nicholas and Torque relative to what they got from their tank play. Whereas in the matchup against LG Evil, they actually did get a better showing with their DPS and Nicholas and Torque. So for me, it's promising signs here for compLexity. They're clearly still rebuilding, still trying to figure things out, but I would be a little surprised if they did not take this matchup coming up, although certainly with all the instability, anything is possible.
Anything is possible, and we do know one thing for sure, though, and that is that compLexity has selected, actually, and I guess I was going to say compLexity, but I believe LG Loyal may have selected this map as compLexity was, well, I'll get the final call. We actually don't know who selected this map. There were penalties for doing late roster swaps, and both of these teams did it. So I think like the penalties canceled each other out, and it sounds like compLexity was the team that selected this map of Kings Row. And so what are we expecting from Kings Row from these guys?
I mean, just on your point, it wouldn't have mattered who got to pick. I think they both would have picked Kings Row. They've both picked it several times throughout the tournament so far. Of course, LG Loyal was very good on it when they had Icefelt over top playing Soldier. Icefelt is gone. Hardest will be replacing him. It's going to be interesting to see what they change. It's very difficult to predict what either of these rosters is going to do because we have no previous footage on them. I don't know what their hero pool is going to look like, but compLexity does like Kings Row. It's something they've played a lot of times, but I think both teams very comfortable on this map.
Changing up even one player can very much change the dynamic of how a team is playing. You saw that very much in effect where compLexity was suddenly running a lot of Genji when they picked up Nesh. Well, when you change up two players, anything is on the table, but the upside is we're about to get in the game and we're going to find out.
Yes, it's game number one, map number one, and it's actually the only match we're going to have for today's broadcast. So all the hype is going to have to fit into this one matchup. compLexity versus LG Loyal. Take it away on Kings Row.
Well, Hex, power may be out in Detroit, but power is still very much on here in Kings Row, perhaps a little bit too much, which is why you have all that smoke and ash filling the sky.
Well, that's why you need to bring the payload to last so that EMP can go off and you get a healthier atmosphere, healthier air, clear skies, I would suppose. So not that I'm against the Omnics, but maybe secretly I am. But Kings Row will kick us off because it's a tournament and ZP and I are casting, and that's just tradition at this point.
Well, see, this is why you like watching Torbjorn play, because if you listen to Torbjorn just absolutely hate Omnics. It's a little bit interesting coming from a guy who builds turrets.
Did you not read the comic today, sir? Got released. Torbjorn has a little crush on the Omnics, actually. You know, he met Bastion in the woods.
Well then.
Brand new comic out today. Check it out, folks. And I think it was new. It was at the top of the subreddit. Anyway, here we are. Let's look at these rosters. What do we have here on the defense for compLexity?
Well, take a look at the defense coming out here from compLexity. They are going to running Torque on the 76 in the back, which he's been very good at, but they're keeping the flanking threat up here with Nicholas on the tracers. So it's going to be Nicholas up to freelance a little bit here while the rest of compLexity is holding back near the archway.
And we have a Hanzo sighting for the moment. Hardest does switch out the Hanzo. Gonna be on McCree. We've seen the power of McCree. Jake's play yesterday showed us that the Cowboy's still very viable in compositions.
Well, Hardest on McCree. We'll see just how this works out here for the side of LG Loyal. Right now he's going to get an early fire strike, and compLexity not really forcing the issue at all here, saying to LG Loyal, you guys need to move into us, and Nicholas almost going down to a headshot from Hardest. Lucky to get out of there with his life, but the rest of compLexity now actually splitting off LG Loyal. LG Loyal, very weird position here in terms of where they're at. They've let themselves be split off, and compLexity is at a pretty good spot right now.
Split off, trying to retreat. Maybe they're still in all over the place. Nesh has picked them apart. Spree's going to get a kill, but late. So a very odd-looking push here as they do regroup a little bit after that kill. They should be able to get something done now. Hidan does have boost ready to go.
And that early boost could be pretty important here for LG Loyal as they start getting a more dominant position on the point. compLexity waiting for their sixth player to come back in as Nicholas about to have a pulse bomb. This is going to have to land for them to really take this back. And the pulse bomb does connect. Fluke goes down immediately, and that's a signal to go here for compLexity. Earthshatter knocks down two as Reinhardt gets boosted. Arguably a little bit too much thrown into that from the side of compLexity, but it does let them definitively retake this point.
I think that pulse bomb actually missed Pluke and landed on the Roadhog instead, but the Roadhog was so close to him, ended up killing Pluke anyway. So right now, the attack needs to group up a little more, in my opinion. The last time they were spread out, they weren't as punished for it, but you're right, they threw a lot into that for first hold, so Spree will have Graviton going into this. They held onto their boost. Could be seen Electric Cowboy.
Well, we have Graviton and the Graviton here. Both teams going to look for that, and it's going to be compLexity landing the first Graviton. Both Gravitons directly into each other, and it's 4v4 on the setup. Ube, though, the real chance of bringing this back around. In on the point, going to pick up two. And as a result, LG Loyal very likely now to take this first point.
Ube's Roadhog has been good. A late Fire Strike will take down Joe Meister, who was skating on the walls, but they had no notions of coming in regardless of that. Still able to hold on to a couple. Hardest yet to use his Deadeye. Gonna be difficult. I know you're not a huge fan of McCree in the second stage.
The problem with the second stage here, and while you can run McCree, you have to run it as more of an ambush McCree rather than looking for Deadeyes or anything else, because you don't have the sight lines that you do in other maps, which means that you have to get more utility out of your flashbang to really make it as worthwhile as other options you could have here in this particular stage.
He's going to keep an eye out for the flankers side. They're going to boost him over, at least speed boost him, but taken out from over the top.
Well, the flanking Tech Visor only takes out one here, so LG Loyal still very much in this fight. Ube gonna be looking for a hook here in just a moment. No shield in his face just yet. Now going to the back line, but there's that Earth Shatter coming in from Meza. We'll see if it's enough to let compLexity defend this. It's not actually as definitive as they would have liked, and in fact, Ube's still around picking off in the back line. Shake goes down, and LG Loyal should be able to keep this moving forward.
They should. Nicholas trying to get some work done, though. He's been the bright spot so far for compLexity. Hedan is escaping Nicholas for the time being, forcing out the rewind, not finishing off Hedan there. Might be a bit of a mistake as Nicholas takes a lot of damage, has to get out. LG Loyal continues to push this as they're unable to get the kills that they need there. Nicholas dies late, so the next fight for second point will be a 6v5 already in favor of Loyal.
Nicholas did not need the even poke out there. He could have stayed up there and gotten healed by Azana, so a bit of a mistake there. Now, it's going to force compLexity to really rush onto this point without a whole lot of positioning, but they're going to run right into the Graviton. Graviton pulls in two. Spree taking down Nesh, but compLexity's still in this fight to some extent. Meza a little bit far out, but had to be to delay the payload. Rest of compLexity coming into that point. Nicholas is back in this, but they're not on the payload, and they need to get on right now. Contested with about 0.01, but with Nicholas going down, this should be the point going the way of LG Loyal.
Perhaps some newness showing through there. Nesh used that Graviton right around the corner when most of his team wasn't there, thinking that he could be his own follow-up. Now, of course, forced into that because they had to fight, but compLexity not all on the same page when it comes to following through on these ultimates. Nicholas has a pulse bomb. The few fights, the few kills they've gotten have generally come off of his pulse bomb, but it has been all Loyal all the way through. Now Hardest has stayed on the McCree. This is a good spot for him.
Deadeye comes in, doesn't connect immediately, but Meza's going to go down a little bit too far forward, and down goes Nicholas. Runs into a flashbang. The Graviton does come in here from Nesh, but unfortunately, with Nicholas down, there wasn't the follow-through that they were expecting there. Still, Torque going to try and make the difference. Tac Visor coming out. LG Loyal, though, still pushing in. Sound Bear of their own, and now another Graviton coming in here from Spree. Going to pull in three, but the Sound Barrier saves at the last moment. It's not going to be Reinhardt getting the fall through that he's looking for, and compLexity, now with respawns, should be able to throw this back.
Fluke was looking to line up an Earth Shatter taken out, though. They will back out right now. Nesh trying his hardest to redeem himself after two lackluster Gravitons had come in. I just have to question the communication. Losing Nicholas, who had a pulse bomb up, and then grabbing, again alone, again with no follow-up. compLexity looks like a little bit off sync today so far. We'll see if they can bring that back. Torque trying to get some poking over the top. Has to be careful not to lose his life there, but the next couple of things you should be looking for are very likely Earth Shatters on both sides.
Hardest has, it's felt like he's been playing more of a containing McCree rather than a carry McCree here, if that is a thing, where Nicholas has actually had real trouble working around him. But it does mean Hardest is looking more the focus on. But there's the Earth Shatter coming in from Meza. Knocks down two. Going to set up compLexity for an easy 2 kills here to start this out. Ube, no chance of getting away under that scenario. So compLexity able to push it back, and now they've actually built a reasonable ultimate buffer here. Axum of 2 minutes ago, this gives them decent odds of having a hold on last.
Absolutely. Nesh has been doing a nice job of getting Gravitons. It's just been the actual execution of said Graviton. He's going to have his third one up in about 3 minutes here. There goes another grab in. Do they have the follow-up for this one?
Well, you'd hope so. As you see, Torque just coming in from the back. No Tac Visor needed, just gunning people down that can't move due to the power of gravity. 5 kills here for compLexity, and Nesh sets the table. The rest of compLexity cleaning it right up.
Alternatively, Ube did use his whole hog there after the Graviton, perhaps trying to save his team from any incoming push from a Reinhardt maybe just to get them away, but an ult that they didn't necessarily have to use. 1 minute and 30 seconds left for them to finish out this map. Mez is sneaking, looking for a charge in.
And there's the Earth Shatter. It's a beauty. It knocks down 4. Meza moving right in the fall through. His flanking Reinhardt play, the gamble paying off. And that is going to be another decisively one-team fight here from compLexity.
Holding outside of this door just for the moment, trying to get in free poke with their tanks as Nesh looking to build up yet another Graviton, already at 33%. This looks like a different team than we saw in the first two stages. These defenses have been great, and the economy of said defenses has been pretty good. However, now it is Loyal who has a big advantage alt-wise with both Grab and Earthshatter ready here. Should be able to capitalize on it.
This puts a lot on Spree. Spree needs to find a way to pierce through, and he's going to drop the Graviton right now. Settles for 2. Soundbear in from LG Loyal as they look to fall through, and they do just that. Hardest in the back getting slept. I'm not sure why Ana and Tracer are back here, but they do pick off 2, so this is going to delay LG Loyal, if nothing else, while they do try and keep 3 on the point.
Well, they are getting good push. A very nice predictive fire strike there as they look to swing out. Yeah, very out of position here. Torque running for his life. Another great fire strike from Fluke.
compLexity tried to get way too cute there. They didn't really need to do that under the scenario. It was fine for the flanking Earthshatter, but to go for it again was just weird. Now they're in a situation where they have to throw off LG Loyal. Last 20 seconds. Soundbear is underway. They're going to run into LG Loyal here. The Earthshatter getting very little here from Fluke. But compLexity also not able to get any kills on Soundbear, but by Ube, booped right off. Joe Meister, who's been a hero on Kings Row last before, trying to find a way in this time. Still though, 5v5 on the point. This is where McCree can start to shine. Hardest looking to make his name here, takes down Nicholas. Can he get more? Fighting Lucian. Oh my God, Joe Meister comes in, melees McCree where the sun don't shine, and suddenly compLexity is still doing a decent job of holding this back.
They are still rolling in here, and now it is overtime, so they have no choice. This will be the last fight regardless of the outcome. Here, Spree is going to be able to demech. That's a couple kills onto this compLexity team. It looks like that's enough kills to be able to close out this. There it is. They do finally. I was just waiting. Until Joe Meister's dead, I never want to call Kings Row last because he's been a hero before.
Well, Spree taking down 4 at the very end, so we can say this for LG Loyal in regards to the roster changes that are going on. One thing that has not changed is that Spree, very arguably the most important player on the squad right now for making things happen. He had a great Graviton to set up that final attack on last, and then he had a good Graviton to finish the attack on last.
A lot of Gravitons throughout the entire map as Nesh was building very, very quickly as well. So, LG Loyal finished out the map. Now they will be defending on the side of things. If they prevent a finish, then that will be our map 1 for compLexity. compLexity, see what they want to run on offense. They've been running Shake on this Zenyatta a little bit more often. I think a lot of it is to help Nesh out, make sure that he's got the support he wants with the orb. It's just the style of Genji he is, and also the Discord has been very, very powerful for them.
Well, you think back to compositions that made Shadowburn look like an unstoppable force of nature. A lot of times FaZe would run things like Zenyatta to keep Shadowburn in tip-top fine condition, and I've been saying this a decent amount here, but you look at other teams like, say, Renegades, they don't necessarily support the Genji in the way that good Genjis have been supported in the past. Like, Saipe is actually getting less support on Renegades than he gets, or less support on Renegades than he got from Citizen 7 back in the day. I want to say Code 7, but that was the old name for compLexity,
right.
So there's a lot of C names that end in 7 in Overwatch, or at least there were.
Well, we'll see how this works out. The one thing I am pretty certain of is that Meza will not be on this Sombra, but who knows? We've seen tankless compositions come to life in the last couple days, but he's in the scouting spot just taking a look to see what the other team is running, getting some recon info.
Well, this is actually old school tribe strategies here. It's high arc spam. There's not too many things you do it with in Overwatch, but what he's going to be doing there is shooting Zarya secondary shots into the air so they arc down right at the very beginning. Maybe you get a little bit of damage, sometimes you don't. Can be worthwhile.
Yeah, they're dodging it for the most part. Meza will switch onto Winston, so they will put a tank into this very dive-heavy composition. We'll see what Nesh wants to get done. Of course, the newer member of this team has added that third DPS threat, Nicholas and Torque on a couple of hit scans.
Lexi right now with the multi-flank threat, but Nicholas getting taken out immediately by Hardest, and for Hardest, he hasn't, again, been super carrying, but he has been keeping Nicholas in check. It's been a relatively quiet game here for Nicholas, and with him dying early on, this really hurts the multi-flank approach that compLexity wanted to use in the very beginning.
In check is a bit of an understatement. He has been dominating Nicholas every time he shows up. He's put an end to some of their pushes early on by stopping the pulse bomb from coming in. He's had his number for sure, but all of his kills have been on Nicholas for the most part. So he's going to get spammed out here, going to get a shield to keep him alive, and now here's a Winston on him. They definitely want to deal with this McCree. You have to imagine that's at Nicholas's request.
Yeah, Nicholas saying, please deal with McCree in the backline, but he has been dealt with, and now Shake moving in with Nesh. Nesh, of course, with the Harmony Orb. Not a whole lot of damage going on him, and compLexity with 3 kills here later into the fight should be able to take this relatively quickly, and that was just a case where compLexity dove into that point, and that time there wasn't the containment, and a lot of it had to do with Hardest going down early on in that fight.
Yeah, Torque able to pick up a lot of damage as he rotated up top, now getting the free poke in over here as well, pushing them very far back. Having to have your shield up that far back, not exactly what a Reinhardt's used to doing.
One thing that's actually very interesting is if you look at the stats of team fights here that have been coming out recently, if a McCree goes down first as your first death, it's actually the worst hero that can ever go down. I think it comes down to the idea that McCree is either killing someone quickly or doing nothing. And Hardest basically did nothing there. So if you can kill the McCree first, it's a very good omen to winning the full team fight.
One of the things to keep an eye on throughout the day for Loyal is, well, hold on to that thought. Here comes the attack visor over the top of the shield, eating most of it, tries to get around this corner. They throw a Transcendence into this as well.
Transcendence does come out, both teams exchanging ults here on this fight, but compLexity coming out a little bit ahead. Torque in the pub, trying to support Meza, not going to be able to do it. In fact, now getting poked back a bit, and we have a Lucio fight here once more, and he's able to keep Torque out, so Torque not able to finish that. Meanwhile, on the point, LG Loyal blows the sound barrier to blow the rest of compLexity right out of the water. But still for LG Loyal, they have to hold here for 4 minutes on second. A lot of time left for compLexity to turn this around, and a Dragon Blade in reserve.
All right, this has not been one of compLexity's best points, though. They probably have terrible memories of that spawn room on King's Row second. They've been camped there before, so trying to prevent that. Spree's looking for targets, but not really wanting to waste a Graviton on just one. He'll be looking for them to group up and come in. Actually, just going to go for it. Lobs a deep one.
Graviton comes in here from Spree, and LG Loyal looking to be in the faces of compLexity, of course. A feeling compLexity is very much used to here.
Yeah.
compLexity probably just thanking God that it's not at their spawn doors, but the important thing here for LG Loyal is that not only are they winning these fights, but they're still stopping the payload from moving. So it's an aggressive defense on second that's working out.
One of the things I was going to say to keep an eye on earlier is this man right here. He's played only McCree today, and we don't know exactly what his pool is going to be throughout. Again, takes down Nicholas, so he has been on Tracer duty and living up to that for sure. But as a new addition to LG Loyal, it's going to be interesting to see how these players adjust to certain compensations, or maybe he just runs McCree. We've seen players do it yesterday, so totally viable.
Nicholas has to give more respect to Hardest here. There's no doubt about it. He's given up way too many free kills. Now, Torque is out in the middle, nowhere in the back. He's going to be coming on the flank, but here comes Nesh. Dragon Blade out, looking for anything, but he over dashes here and is just actually swinging at the air as the whole hog pushes him back. Nicholas, though, does hit pay dirt, takes down Fluke. 2 kills here from compLexity, despite the opening, and Torque with the attack visor will come in on the flank and finish this out. However, compLexity had to exchange a lot of power to take this here.
A ton of power and some decent stall there actually by Ubi to make sure that the cart can't push. I think they would like to be able to fight before it gets around the bend you're seeing on your camera right now, so that if they do win a fight, they can hold them closer to spawn. There's somewhat of the math involved in where you can fight on King's Row based on spawn points and things like that. But a lot of push coming now. They're going to wait for the entire team to regroup. They don't want anyone caught out there by these shurikens. Ubi spam. Only ult is Hardest, who's been holding on to that Deadeye for quite some time.
Well, Deadeye, one of the harder ultimates to use in the game, but he's looking for the dive. Takes down Nesh. Perfect timing off the dash. Nesh taking the Deadeye to the head. 3 kills here from LG Loyal. And going on to that Deadeye right now, if you take a look at the stats, it's actually interesting because ult-wise, it's when you use it, you're more likely to lose the fight than to win it on the whole.
Oddly enough, it's one of those perplexing kind of stats, but I'm just glad I wasn't wearing 3D glasses there. I think I would have had a heart attack as Genji coming right at you.
Well, you take a look at Hardest right now, he's really just hoping to find Nicholas when Nicholas goes in. His entire point here is to play second the way we were talking about earlier, where he wants to find flashbangs to catch things off guard. It's compensating for the fact that you don't have crazy good sightlines in most of the points, and still looking for Nicholas here, but here comes the Graviton out from the side of LG Loyal, and they pick up 3, now 4 off of Spree's well-timed ultimate.
Very nice there. They are going to get the 5th kill. It should be enough to take this cart to second, as they had so much progress on it already. Hardest, actually, never mind, sorry, that's defense. Hardest takes down Nesh again. These flankers are having a very difficult time, and you got to give credit where credit's due. Hardest has played great against them.
Well, again, the other thing, too, with how Hardest is playing is that he's really not trying to be the carry, I'm doing maximum damage in the front. He really is just on flanker control, hiding in areas, shutting down paths, and avoiding the major team fight, but it's very much been working out. Still, compLexity going to be coming in here in this fight. Ube countering with a nano whole hog, takes down Mez immediately. Winston cannot stand up to that level of damage. 5v5 though, as Nicholas, not contained by McCree this time. Nesh in the back, Dragon Blade taking down Plaza, or Reels rather. I don't know why I put this Plaza. But it is a much cleaner team fight here at compLexity as Nesh finishes out with 2 dash resets at the very end.
ZP experiencing temporary dyslexia. as Reels became Plaza only for the moment. That is enough for them to get to this checkpoint, and at the last second too, only 17 seconds left. That will mean a $1:45 on the clock to be able to close it out and at least force another round of Kings here. Conversely, if LG can hold this, they will be winning the map.
We do the Deadeye coming out here from Harris. He gets the Zarya shield to make it a little bit more durable and not able to connect at the very end. Fortunately got line of sighted towards the end of that ultimate. The way though, taking down Nicholas will be hurting the flanking car compLexity here. As compLexity, not with as much time as you might think here, Hex, but 5v5, they're going to activate Sound Baron. They're taking this fight. Know where to go here for this Reinhardt Super Fluke, just surrounded on all sides. Should be falling here in just a moment, and this is a very good opportunity for compLexity, perhaps their best opportunity to finish out the map with some time remaining.
Absolutely, and what did you say about McCree's dying in fights early? Hardest was the first death in that fight, getting a little too aggressive beyond his Reinhardt shield, going for Nicholas, ended up eating a Helix rocket. Hardest will switch for the first time today. He is off McCree onto a defensive Tracer instead. Very likely to get back onto the point, but it seems like he's being prioritized on that McCree. Nesh has Dragon Blade looking to close out this point.
Well, Nesh could be the key here, going directly onto Ana, takes down He-Down immediately. Well executed, finds Hardest. It's a 3K here from Nesh, going wild on Genji, about to make it 4. And Nesh has certainly opened the door here for compLexity. They should be able to ride this payload right into the very end. LG Loyal, of course, going to try and stall, but it's going to be close. The Ana boosted Tracer, though, will be giving them a little bit of extra life. We'll see if it's enough.
Well, there's the stall. You do need to start seeing kills for the defending team if they really want to hold. A attack visor towards the end should be enough to close it out. Super Fluke came out with a shield up, but only for a moment. It is all compLexity pushing it towards the end. Here comes a D.Va late to the cart. That is both teams completing Kings Row. We had a draw on Kings Row yesterday, ZP.
We did indeed have a draw in Kings Row, and we're in draw territory once more here, as neither team having a whole lot of time left. If compLexity was able to finish that with a minute remaining and 1 second, they would have been able to deny LG Loyal their attack, but because they barely finished it themselves, both teams getting extra time.
Well, you see the huge advantage for compLexity there with 5 seconds more. Could be, you know, time for another blink in, I guess nothing. So pretty much dead even here, about a minute each for each team to attack and or defend. Generally first point, but we've seen teams push it all the way to the end with a minute. As long as you stay on the cart in overtime, you can do what you will with that payload. compLexity, it appears, going to be defending first here. They are going to run only 2 DPS for the moment, as Nesh will go back onto Zarya. And LG Loyal, and it seems like Hardest will be playing a Pharah. Interesting enough. He played so well on McCree. See what he can do on his Pharah.
Well, this is X Factor, to be sure, where we saw his McCree playing in a more interesting style McCree that I think we've seen, because when people think McCree players, they think Grim Reality level, Taimu level, where you're trying to kill everything. Hardest had one job, and he did that job pretty well.
Until he tried to kill everything, and he went too far, got killed, and that was really the death that started snowballing that last point. So, was really good at it, but perhaps stepping a bit out of bounds. We'll see how his Pharah does on this attack. Really only 1, maybe 2 attacks at best. Concussion Blast will not dislodge the Soldier 76 from the top. He's going to have to chase that down. Soldier 76 probably going to make an appearance up in that window. Nesh gets the first kill.
Well, right now it is LG Loyal trying to dive in, but compLexity, they're bending back, not breaking. They give plenty of room here to LG Loyal, and now they're just counter pushing back in. So off those early pickoffs, they are able to control the flow of this fight. And even though Hardest is up here in the top, under enough pressure that he's not really doing much with these rockets right now.
Well, just living through this would be good for him. He's got to get out, though, and it's going to be difficult for him to get back in this fight. However, they're equalizing by pulling their own soldier out of the fight.
Well, what will be the final fight here of this round about to be underway. LG Loyal with a final attempt as they move in, but they're Winston. A little bit out of position, but he's maybe created enough of a distraction here. Fluke, he goes down, but while it's in, Hardest and He-Dan pick up too. So LG Loyal now, the real chance of taking this and getting the payload moving, but compLexity starting to fight it right back. Relatively even between both sides, but now with Nesh and Nicholas getting that, and Nicholas still in good health, he's going to be able to move around and be the duelist that Tracer can be in finishing out a fight like this. Under pressure, but the Graviton comes in. And will the follow through be here for compLexity? It's looking like it is.
Not much left, and a tactical visor comes out from Torque at the end there. That is a defense on the second round of Kings. We're firmly in draw territory now.
compLexity, of course, they'll have 5 more seconds, Hex. Not generally a game-breaking amount of time.
No, generally not. But who knows? In Overwatch, 5 seconds can be an eternity. It's just with a minute, you generally have one great attack, maybe two if you're very quick on it. I think the problem with that last one is they weren't very quick on it, ended up leaving their own Pharah above, and so they couldn't come back in. Difficult times. It looks like compLexity wants to run a Pharah of their own. Never mind, Meza is on that.
Mez is on that. It's very likely that he's going to go Winston.
Yes. But tanks like to dream of being DPS. Across the board, if have you ever played the Reinhardt main, or have watched Overwatch, they're the ones who switch onto interesting stuff in the beginning. You can never believe them, though.
I would love to see 4 DPS, though, just as an experiment. I'm not sure if you really want to do that experiment with a minute 5 left to go in trying to close out a map and avoiding a tiebreaker, but would be neat.
If you want to see 4 DPS, just watch Renegades or Hammers Esports, former Hammers Esports, now LG Evil. They run it on occasion, not so much lately, but have run it in this actual tournament. Hardest is back on his McCree duty, looking to shut down flankers. Nesh and Nicholas beware.
Well, given that they have had such a focus on flanking DPS, you have to think that Mez's primary target here is going to be Hardest, where that's how they took point A before Hex, where Mez was able to get into him before. So if you're McCree, this is a class 5 Winston warning. You're gonna have a monkey in your face.
Does not sound ideal, but Hardest has repositioned himself through the hotel. Ube gets the first kill, though. That's the power of Roadhog. Torque goes down.
Torque goes down immediately, but Nesh's gang worked down in the back. Ube is down, and Ube is usually the glue in these situations as Roadhog, so this is not bad here at compLexity. Still, Hardest flanking in from the back, looking for Lucio, taking down Joe Meister, and now he's going to be able to clean this up as he wants. Certainly, you still have Mez in the fight, but that's not a case where you can actually dive in and take out Hardest. So, time-wise, oh no, Hardest goes down the Torque, and suddenly the gates are going to be open for Nicholas and Nesh going into this final fight. compLexity with a great moment of opportunity, and they're not wasting it. They're going to leap right in. Super Pluke having the backup bit. Winston, of course, for Meza, not getting as much done, but here comes the cavalry. Everyone rolling in onto the point now for compLexity, and they take down Pluke. Things starting to snowball the way of compLexity here.
Well, able to push them in the corner, at least, was that Winston. The positioning battle definitely won. Nicholas gets a pulse bomb onto Hedan. There goes Hardest. There goes Reels. It has all been compLexity. A victory transcendence coming out for the most part right now, unless Ube can pull off a miracle. He's dashing around as Tracer, trying to defend this. Goes down. Did defend a little bit. Can they stall back onto it? He does.
Well, Super Pluke charges in only to immediately die in a hilarious fashion. What more do you have to do? It's like, well, I guess I have to do this now. I know how this is going to end. I've seen this movie. But I will say that you saw that Hardest was really the glue there in the back. He was what was stopping compLexity from running the flankers as they wanted to, but as soon as he went down, compLexity was able to surround Pluke, isolate him, take him out, and it just progressively got worse and worse there for LG Loyal until eventually they lost the point and they've lost the map.
I just imagine the Winston or the Reinhardt with tears streaming down his face as he's charging. This is my life now, knowing it's not going to work. Tragic. Tragic stuff. Shake, though. Zenyatta play. Really good.
Yeah, I'm waiting for some My Heart Will Go On montages with that charge coming in there.
Actually, I think the biggest moment in media where someone just looks resigned to just getting completely destroyed was Game of Thrones, where Stannis is going through that entire charge and it's just like flicks down and all right, we're doing this.
Spoilers.
Wow, yeah, dang.
It's been a year.
Yeah.
It's been
there's a statute of
there's
limitations.
a threshold there where it's like,
Game of Thrones is like a
okay,
week.
yeah,
if you haven't
maybe
caught up in a week, then too late.
Also, you're
about
on the internet. Like, Twitch will spoil everything for you.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't read Twitch chat. You know, I also like my my ego intact as well. So, hashtag left guy. Anyway. Yeah,
you have a name. Your name is Gilfrost.
I forgot my name. I'm just left guy now. No, I'll go by. I'll take Gilfrost / left guy. Looking at this matchup, because we definitely saw some new things. I liked what we did see from Hardest, at least on McCree. But break down that Pharah play from him a little bit. He didn't play for very long. I mean, did we see anything from that?
The Hardest died a couple times on the McCree, and I saw a similar thing happening when he was at Pharah. He got bionated, and he was at 140, and he was peaking peeking and poking, and I was having a heart attack of why are you doing this? If you die right now, it's absolutely over. They came up to get him. Some positioning. I don't think it's enough of a Pharah life to really judge it. I liked his flanker control though.
I mean, I think the thing about Pharah that is pretty true historically is that Pharah does the best when it is a team effort, when you have people pouring resources in her to make her good. So that means you're in range of your supports, you're in range of a Zarya, and you have people making your skill set work. A Pharah on her own is a far more vulnerable and far easier to kill character. So wasn't really a fan of where Hardest was playing that.
Yeah, no, that was questionable. And with a minute of time, like you've got to make a decision and go for it. That decision did not pay off for them. One thing that we did see at the end and a few times throughout that whole match was the Tracer versus the Reinhardt, and what seems like a Goliath versus David battle. Why is it so effective for that Tracer to focus down? Like it was Nicholas focusing down Superpluke. Why is that good for his Tracer?
You got to get the shields down, and also it's a really easy target to sticky bomb. Reinhardts are slow; they're not moving around. They're a giant target, so that's why you usually see the Tracers blinking through more often than not to take down the Rein.
Well, it's also the part where if the Reinhardt wants to defend himself from that, he has to move his shield. So if he's moving his shield, the team isn't getting anywhere near as protected. So it's a very rough situation for the Reinhardt to be in, where oftentimes he has to ignore the Tracer and he has to rely on his team to get rid of the Tracer in that situation. Meanwhile, the Tracer, not only is Reinhardt a good pulse bomb target, but the Tracer is also building up ultimate very quickly when getting in on it. So Reinhardt, very good target for Tracer.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about Nesh then. So all these new people coming in. He played Zarya, and I think he played Zarya once yesterday for just a little bit. But we got to see him a little bit more, and this is something that they've used in the past, is these Wombo-type combos. How did we like him on Zarya?
Good and bad, and the bad can be easily corrected by just a little bit more coordination, because he was getting a lot of gravitons when he was playing it. I think he had 3 on the defense. However, 2 of those did very, very little. One of them came immediately after Nicholas died with Pulse Bomb, which I think they were trying to set up. So they're still working out the kinks and their coordination, but getting that many gravitons up is hugely important for Zarya, so it's just how he uses them.
One of the best indicators of how well your Zarya is performing is, in fact, how quickly you get ultimate up. And not every Zarya is able to do it as quick as Nesh was there. You take a look at other Zaryas in the scene. I think of people like Mendo or Matt that are known for getting Zarya ults up very quickly. Harblue was actually getting better at it as well, where it's an interesting evolution for him because Zarya wasn't always good, and then it actually leveled up in recent times.
And actually, you can even, as you're watching these games, if you want to tell, like literally watch the 2 Zaryas if it's a mirror match and see how fast their ult is charging up. And you can see it a little bit by who's getting that 100% charge more often. And actually, I think both of these, I mean, Spree, it's hard to argue with his Zarya. He had a few questionable, he had one ult where he was like past that first choke coming into the second push, and it's good to keep people pushed back, but they like used an ult and to get like 2 kills and it bought him like 30 seconds. But another thing that I thought was interesting when you bring McCree into the mix is LG Loyal has really relied on ultimate usage in the past to find victories. They've kind of played passively until they found their ults, and then they had really good combos. How does that interact with having McCree on your roster? Because Deadeye, as you had mentioned, not necessarily the most impactful of ultimates as it's been seen.
The problem with Deadeye is that you're always taking a very big gamble, and unfortunately, if you look at the stats throughout competition, generally players do not make good decisions when they go for Deadeyes. They really don't. I mean, you will get the occasional hero Deadeye. Of course, Jake probably was up on the Deadeye ratio last time we saw him, but oftentimes you'll see Deadeyes go out, and then the McCree dies to something that he didn't see, where he would have been more effective if he was just going with his normal kit. So it's an ultimate that is very difficult to use effectively in competition.
One of the best ults it combos with is Nano Boost, of course we saw, but also Earth Shatter. The problem is when you Earth Shatter and you hit 4, you don't necessarily need a Deadeye to be able to clean them up. There's 4 people on the ground, and generally swinging the hammer will do it. So it's very difficult. I like when people use it. I mean, it's a joke, right? But zoning ults, it's legit a very good zoning ult. No one can peek out, and it's good at cleaning up. But the problem is with Reinhardt shields the way they are, that shield has to be down to get anything out of a Deadeye.
Yeah, no, it's high noon. And we saw it a few times this last game, and I think that the most effective times is when you can live through it and just slow down the opponent, make them wonder where they're positioning. Well, we are going to be going into Temple of Anubis. Looks like we're waiting for the teams to get in. We've got some Europeans now, so we're trying to make sure we're getting on that East Coast server to be as friendly for everyone as far as ping goes. Coming into this next map, of course, compLexity now up 1-0 in the series. LG Loyal picking this one for us. Why do we think they're picking Temple of Anubis?
Well, LG, their recent results have been they're 2-2 on Anubis, and I think they're 0-1 on Hanamura. We've generally just seen a lot more Anubis lately, but on the other side of things, I don't think it mattered much where they're going to go because compLexity has yet to win an assault map.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, in the past, even though their record, LG Loyal, on that map is half and half now in at least this event, and prior to that, it was a little mixed. When you watch them, they do tend to have really coherent strategies, and that you definitely feel like they like to play on this map. It just hasn't resulted in wins, and we're seeing some roster changes, and maybe they're feeling like, well, we had a good plan coming in, but just the pieces weren't there to fit in, and so we'll see if they can bring anything else out here.
I will say this for compLexity going into this, now that they have the Nesh on their side, and Nesh has shown the explosive ability to clean up a team fight very decisively as opposed to just barely winning it, I actually do like compLexity's chances going in here, even though statistically they would be disadvantaged based on their history. You still have to take that with a grain of salt because of all the roster change-ups that we've seen. compLexity has not always played with Nesh. So I think that there's a very good chance compLexity can walk away at the W here if they're able to leverage that to their advantage.
Right. Well, let me clarify, because perhaps I wasn't clear. They have yet to win Assault, but they've tied 3 times.
Yeah. They have, yeah.
It's been 3 ties, and as you mentioned, the Genji is one of the heroes that can always clean up those last points that perhaps they were missing before. So that new wrinkle into it could absolutely help them close out. That's what we've seen all across this map. When people are finishing out last points, it's often off the back of a giant Dragon Blade.
Yeah, I think they have the most 4th maps because you know, they haven't been necessarily, well, they've been doing all right as far as victories go, but when even if they are losing the map 3-0, they usually tie on at least one of the first 2. Well, here we are on beautiful, sunny, not quite as beautiful as Hollywood, but we're on to Temple of Anubis.
I don't know if I would look at this and my immediate reaction would be beauty. You have the weird mix of the ancient and some tech stuff there, and it looks like you get a lot of sand in your eyes.
Well, only if it's windy. Sandstorms are a thing. I heard it's a song, too. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. There's some beauty in desolation if you're emo like I am. However, this is
Bible thump.
This is going to be Anubis rolling out here. compLexity down. compLexity will be on, I believe, the defense first. Hard to see so far. Nope, that is LG Loyal on the defense first. compLexity will be attacking this map. We'll see what they want to run.
Well, you take a look here at the LG Loyal defense as it comes out, and Hardest is going to be on anti-flanker duty here once more, where he doesn't realize that there's not a Tracer coming from him, but McCree's still pretty good at shooting fair out of the sky. However, he's going to need a lot of support because if both those flankers get on him at the same time, or he gets some range of torque, his life could end very well indeed.
Well, Hardest is, as you mentioned, on the McCree. He has to be the prime target for them, if only to make those lives a little easier. Torque on the Widow to come out, though. Should be having that Cowboy in his sights. Nicholas also putting some pressure on. Hits a nice headshot. No kill so far, though.
But this is where Torque is going to be dominating sightlines, really dictating where the Reinhardt has to look. And this is going to create an opportunity for Nesh in the back because they're worried about the Widow. They're not worried about the Genji. So multiple threats coming here for compLexity. Winston diving in, but Nesh not able to find the success he's looking for in the backline. Spree, that first pickoff, and the hook coming in here. This could go quite badly here for compLexity as they're going to be down 2.
From bad to worse, 2 down. Not necessarily time to full-on retreat, though, as Torque can still find a pick here, and that would help them a lot. Now he's getting damage boosted. He sees that silhouette of the Roadhog down there, or hears the Roadhog, rather. We're the ones seeing the silhouettes, and dodges that hook. Waits for his team to get back. So far, they're just playing behind the shield. Hard to get a lot of work done on this Widow so far.
Well, now they're going to be seeing all sorts of stuff through walls here as the recon site is up here for Torque. It's going to give a little bit more information. More information to the compLexity flankers as well as they look to dive in. As Hardest does get Winston in his face and is taken down as a result. The fall through is there from the back. But LG, that's the only kill they get here so far. They're still going to have to fight a way through. The Resurrection is going to come in, though, so they are all in on the side of compLexity here to take this out. They trade out. 5v5 is where it goes, but nothing is on Torque here, Hex, and eventually that's going to catch up to LG Loyal, as you can't let a Widow do whatever she wants.
Reinhardt's also down too, as they barraged him down, so no shields to hide behind. Gonna have to stay in the Diva Matrix. Joe Meister goes down again. Here comes the Dragon Blade.
Dragon Blade coming up from Nesh, slicing immediately, finding Hedan. Not Zelda for that, looking for more, takes down both supports, and Nesh probably has just cracked this wide open here for compLexity. And for LG Loyal, they're going to have to settle themselves with defending on point B.
Exactly as you predicted, that the Genji was going to be a difference maker for this compLexity team, able to run triple DPS to a higher level now because of that great Genji play from Nesh. Torque, for the moment, is staying on this Widow. I think he recharged his infrared sights. He did, so we've seen Widow be very good on Anubis as a whole, even running it into last sometimes.
Well, as we say that, he does swap off, so he doesn't even get the full utility off that. But
hold on, let me try again. We've seen Reaper be really good on Anubis, especially on last sometimes. Actually, true.
Is there a Tracer on this broadcast? Because I never heard the first part there. Cheers, love. But we do have the next fight coming into play here. compLexity on the way, and Nicholas able to take down Reels immediately. So 6v5 opportunity, but Torque falling. They're not going to have that Reaper cleanup, and High Noon coming in from Hardest, able to take down Meza. The Deadeye getting some good value that time around, and compLexity going to be pushed out.
Yeah, they needed to get out with that combo. They do. I have no idea why this Lucio is still here. He might have been hiding below and got in a little late, so he's going to get back with his team. He'll be able to boost them back into this point, though.
Hex, that's a mighty Joe Meister. He was going to take them down 1v5. Let us not underestimate the heroics of the Joe.
I believe it. Shake is going to have his Resurrection up. Resurrection also a very powerful ability to push last, to reset the fight once you have an advantage. That is an advantage right there. Hardest goes down to a hook.
And the gates are now open for compLexity as they move in. Here comes a barrage from Nicholas, takes down one immediately, effectively getting 2 kills, in fact. Gets hooked and killed, but that's the only person to die here for compLexity. So they are going to be swarming onto this point with 5, and they have the res to even bring up just 1. And they're going to do that. So they have a full 6 now on the point. LG Loyal falling 1 by 1, desperately trying to turn this back in, but this is always hard. This is where the offense can get the defense in a chokehold and just chain kill after kill.
There goes Pluk down there, and now there is a Mei out here to try to stall. Diva getting in on the stall action as well. You're going to have to start seeing some kills from Loyal, though, if they want it. There's one. Hardest takes out Joe Meister.
Well, this is the choice of heroics we have known to see many a time here on Temple Anubis, and Hardest looking to follow in those footsteps. Almost picks off 2 there, but both of them getting away at the last moment. But still, he does get down Shake. There's not going to be another res, and the defense coming out the sound barrier, so
they didn't even get a tick.
Yeah, that's rough. I was going to say, well, at least they got a tick, and I look up. No, they didn't even get that.
They did not.
And compLexity, that was a fully won fight. They had a 6-0 at one point, but they weren't able to seal out the respawns. Very unfortunate there for compLexity.
Torque has looked great so far. He's hitting very, very good hooks, as you mentioned, whereas we saw there taking down Hardest, who was on the McCree ledge. Being a little bit greedy here, they will wall off unless they're going to go all the way out, which I would advise against. However, compLexity does have ults here. They do throw out a very strangely placed Blizzard.
The Blizzard comes out, but that was very risky for LG Loyal. They did get hit pretty heavily by that Graviton. They could have lost way more people off of that. They were just too far up, too clumped when Graviton is a threat, and compLexity still has a chance of pulling in this fight. They have to kill this Mei. No, they don't. The ice block comes in just in time. So Ube going to be able to get away here, and though compLexity is still pressuring, this is a pretty hard sell to imagine them taking this right now. It's just too slow, and respawns are coming back in.
Slow push, but they will get on the point, I think, to fight 6v6 if they want. And Earthshatter does go down somewhere behind the back lines. Pluk does take down Meza with that Shatter, as there's fights going on all over the place. Farah's now on the field. Defensive fair play by Hardest. Another kill from Super Pluk means this is over, despite Hardest committing honorable Subaru. That's
honorable
say it, right?
Subaru? No,
Yeah.
it's honorable Sudoku.
Oh, that's right.
Don't worry, chat, we're just triggering you. We do know what it's actually called. Or do we? Who knows? Maybe we're just covering.
Oh, the fire strike into the wall. They will clean up Meza.
I need a wall to charge someone into. I got you, fam.
That will delay the next push a little bit, as they'll wait for their tank to get around. So they don't want to go through that door anymore. They're going to run their offensive Mei as well, something we've seen on this map before. Try to get some entry in. It can be very good for Blizzard, too.
One thing that is a little bit frustrating, not that Nesh's Zarya has been bad by any means, but I do wish he was playing a Genji here just for that burst cleanup that we thought we might be seeing. Instead, he is still on the Zarya, which, again, can be effective, but I don't know if it's compLexity's actual best play for going in here, but they want to put their faith into getting a Blizzard and getting a good Graviton, and we'll see if it works. But this attack here is very slow, and this need to make it a good junk rush, if nothing else. But the barrage does come down, 5v5 on the point. We'll see if LG Loyal converts more ultimates in here, and they probably will as they just lose 2.
Yeah, dropping Ube there is great as well, and now they're going to have their own up. A self-destruct over the top, though, takes down both tanks. Now Hedan cleans up Nicholas. The self-destruct saves this point. Torque is not long for this world. We're getting down to it. Buck 15 left on the clock. Time for one more good push, but Nesh used his grav in that fight. They're only, I think, 55%, hard to see from here, on Blizzard. So not in the best position here. Maybe you can get the nano whole hog. It's a thing that works.
Well, let me tell you this, Hex. Winter is coming, because not only do we have a Blizzard coming out for Ube, but Nicholas might build up Blizzard over the course of this next fight, so it's going to get awfully chilly here. Iceball does come out here for compLexity, trying to split things off, but Ube going to take the initiative, drops the Blizzard into the backline, and this is going to be compLexity popsicles for everyone. 3 kills resulting from that Blizzard. And compLexity now, with 30 seconds left, they should be able to get back on here, but this is a pretty intentional stagger coming out. Torque just wishing for death, just far too chilly.
We'll finally get it. However, silver lining, 20 seconds. Oh, but they were going to wall, too. That is going to be difficult to deal with. If they can get back on there, they've got a ton to work with.
They do have a ton to work with, and I don't know if LG Low can actually stop them from touching the point. It would really require good circumstances, the best wall of all time, and just the offense coming in from the wrong area. But here comes Nicholas moving in. Sound Bear is on the way. He will touch the point. Here comes the Blizzard. This Blizzard already touching 4 people, forcing LG Loyal to move away from the point. But Jake gets caught out by hardest flank early on. They're down the Ana. They're not going to have to stand in this push. Still, 2-2 on kills here for compLexity, but Hex, with no ticks, that doesn't seem like it's going to be enough unless everything else goes their way.
It's going to require a miracle of giant proportions here to come back. Although Joe and Torque do end up demeching and taking down Hedan. Torque still alive, tries to take down Spree, gets Bunny blasted.
Oh my goodness. Bunny Blaster in a corner, taking down Torque. And now compLexity here really, very arguably just playing for the draw, because the odds of getting a full hold on Anubis pretty low. Maybe they can hold off LG from second. It would be great if they did somehow get that hold on first, but expectations now much lower here for compLexity for the remainder of Anubis.
Some switch-ups that they made towards the end, I would have liked to see them stay on Reaper for more than a life. We've seen Liquid run Reaper to great effect to be able to close out second point often than not. Going to the offensive May, I think just for the Blizzard didn't quite work out. Almost got eaten by the defense matrix too. So they kept trying the same thing. I also agree with you. I'm not sure why Nesh switched off. Graviton can be good, but Dragon Blade is great. And then when they're trickling in too, he gets so good in those one-on-one situations, does Genji. But regardless.
Well, it's not even just the Dragon Blade too. I mean, it's just the part where Genji can get dash resets and quickly turn a fight that's slightly in your favor into something that is completely in your favor. That said, I mean, compLexity did have one very good push where they had 6 on the point, 2-0, and they weren't able to stop bleeding deaths right after that, where Hardest was able to come in and really take that back for LG. So compLexity did have a good shot of taking that with a decent amount of time left. It just did not happen.
Absolutely. LG on the attack now. Looks like they want to run a very dive-oriented composition. Hedan will play the Mercy to Spree's Pharah. Defensively, the new players, Nesh and Meza, going to be part of a defensive dive comp on Genji and Winston, respectively. Torque, of course, with his Soldier 76, going to be alternating high grounds.
So, taking a look here at the defense and what they're looking at here, they are going to be going much more heavy dive setup here, Hex, which oftentimes can buy a lot of time, but it's rare to see it full hold. It does happen, but I feel like it's less of a chance of full holding than something a little bit more traditional that gambles on, say, a Symmetra or a Torb. So we'll see if this works out here for compLexity, because their only chance of winning this is getting that full hold.
Absolutely. They're going to rotate in through left side, the combination with both other flankers, too, looking for some damage. This is a route we've seen a lot of Pharahs take so they can get the high ground. They are all on Torque right away. He falls quickly. There goes Nicholas. Both DPSs for compLexity down. Shake goes down. This fight is all but over already.
This is pretty definitive here from LG Loyal. Very good opening by Spree. Catches Torque off guard. I mean, Torque was also running from Super Pluke, so on all sides, there was death around Torque, so he couldn't do anything. Then Nicholas gets picked off trying to support him.
Yeah.
You no longer have DPS that can pull it back, and what more can you say? That was just a full-on routing for LG Loyal.
Perfectly executed dive, though. They had their target, and they all went to him. You saw Nicholas running away from the Winston, then he ate a rocket. That's exactly what you want to happen to be able to focus those single targets on dive compositions. Now they have a little shy of 7 minutes to push last, so we might be here for 7 minutes. Given the nature of assault maps, very difficult to push those last points. Some switch-ups come out for complexity as they go a little tank heavier, triple tank.
Triple tank coming in, and complexity gonna have to hold for a very long time. 6.5 minutes here on point B, so they need to grab some stickers, whatever it might be, because they're gonna be here for quite some time. Or will they? Hardest able to take down Meza immediately. 65 opportunity for LG Loyal. This could actually end very quickly if complexity is not careful. They're down 2, and here comes Ube, finishing Dragon Blade on the way. Picks down 2, looking for the 3rd. That's one beefy Roadhog, but still, Ube finding a way to slice through every layer. And LG Loyal now on the verge of a very quick win, and they get it, Hex!
Beautiful. Beautiful push.
Wow.
And you know who was instrumental to that? What hero?
Genji.
Genji. Just so good at pushing glass. It's almost a must run. You can run it with other things as well. You can run it with Reapers, maybe. He's also good, but you see how good Genji can be and is on last points of assault. Be a little surprised if Ube didn't grab play of the game here. There's that pumpkin.
Is that Nico? I'm never going to not associate Nico with not slaughtering pumpkins after the last monthly melee. It's not going to happen.
No, but look at this great cleanup. Grabs 3, even finishes out the Roadhog who had been low during that nano. Nice play.
It looked about as decisive as second attacks look, especially on that first push. And it came after a very strong push on first. I mean, they were just unstoppable.
They ran dive perfectly,
Yeah.
and then they had this snowbally sustain of Genji at last.
Well, and I'm like thinking back now, and I'm like, I don't think we've seen that kind of dive out of LGL in the past, at least not executed like that.
No, we've totally seen dive from them. It's just
right.
they
Not
failed
like,
to finish people off.
Not
And
good
this time
dive,
around, they didn't. They actually got the kills very quickly, although complexity very much looked out of sorts there. And again, I know we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but I do wonder why they didn't run Genji on second. Nesh has the same type of explosive power that Ube does, arguably more so, and they didn't even give it a chance. They ran the Zarya instead. I feel like for assault maps, that was a mistake.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen a lot of different players utilize that on second. And yeah, I feel like maybe they're playing around with some things because they also play a lot of different things on defense on second. I guess we didn't get to see very many opportunities for them. They also looked out of sorts in a few other circumstances. They had Torque swap to Reaper for 1 life and then swapped right back to Roadhog. I mean, how are we feeling about that?
His Roadhog was good, but indecision, I think.
Yeah.
Just giving up on things too early. And I know I call people stubborn sometimes, but you can have the opposite as well. So you give it a shot. Just dying once doesn't mean it's over. It's not like you got bodied there, but they seem to not have a plan.
The other thing about Reaper, though, that's very good about him on Anubis, forget all the areas where he can flank, use terrain to his advantage, and all the rest. Let's just talk about Death Blossom here, which is another way of decisively taking out a team, or even better, if you've already won the fight very well, when people are coming back in, they're kind of forced to go into that point. They can't really go out of their way to avoid a Death Blossom. You can use it to cash in on 2, 3 easy kills as a team is coming back in. I think Reaper is pretty uniquely suited to last point on Anubis in particular. So you're right. I mean, Torque did not give it a fair shake there.
Yeah.
Shake.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Because you really have 2 options. You're like, we're going to kill everyone real fast, or we're going to have enough staying power that as they're trickling back on, we can kill them slightly faster than they can kill us.
Reaper has both. He's got self-sustain. He's got good, a decent health pool. And the last thing you want to have happen is roll out and you have to walk towards a Reaper. He's frightening.
Yeah, you don't want that's not your plan in
spooky.
most circumstances. Well, and then the question is, well, if you're not going to have Reaper, at least have something else that has that impact, like a Genji. And like I said, they're playing around with a few things. Didn't really feel it. It looks like we have our map, and it is going to be. We're off of the desert. We're going to different climes. That is going to be Nepal.
Well, we can't escape the cold no matter what. First, we have cold being brought by Double May at one point. Now we have cold being brought by a wintry, mountainous environment. So one way or another, it's going to get chilly.
Yeah.
Nepal makes perfect sense. Both of these teams struggle mightily on control across the board. The only map that either of them has won on control, Nepal.
So there you go. And it sounds familiar. It sounds like King's Row. Well, they're both pretty strong.
Yeah.
And so this one was selected by compLexity. So is this another classic? Let's just pick what we're good at, not worry too much about your opponents. Or is it really just, well, all the control point maps are pretty close anyway. Let's just choose the one we feel good about.
Yeah, I think it's probably that. You don't want to pick the map that LG Loyal is best at, but when it's the only control map that you've proven to be good on, then you have to.
And they look really strong on King's Row, and so I have to think that they're feeling pretty good coming into this game with their record, with a little bit more of a solidified roster because we've seen it 2 days in a row. So,
Yeah.
Control maps are much more about how your flankers are playing than perhaps the other maps in the game are, despite recent developments in the meta. So I think what's really going to be the key thing to watch here is how does Hardest, new to this LG Loyal roster, how does he deal with the flanking coming in from, say, Nesh and Nicholas on this map? If he's able to deal with them effectively, I think LG Loyal actually takes this pretty readily. If they're able to get on him effectively with their engages and neutralize him, I think it goes the other way. But I do think Hardest will be the focal point here between both these teams.
Yeah, and we even saw that on King's Row. We didn't talk about it too much, but when he was playing on attack, this is your first time on, in a competitive match, playing McCree, he played behind the Reinhardt shield a lot. And then as he played a little bit more, and on attack you can do that a little bit different, because really at that point all he was waiting for was the Tracer to potentially come around and try to get your Reinhardt, so you can defend your Reinhardt a little bit. And then on attack he started going to these flanking positions a little bit more, and that's when we started seeing him die early. I'd be curious as we see him not on the McCree, but maybe on the Tracer a little bit more on Nepal. In which case, he's going to be the one hopefully flanking.
Well, I think the thing is here is that if you're running a very good McCree, you don't even have to run the Tracer. I mean, you could run a Tracer with it, that's fine, but if you can just keep the other Tracer from doing anything, at the end of it, you still have a McCree, the other team does not have a Tracer, you have the man advantage. So even though Tracer is very, very good, being used heavily by a lot of top teams, I don't think you're necessarily locked into running it. There are viable alternatives that are out there.
Well, we might not see a single Tracer given what the teams are showing us so far. The first stage we will enter on will be Sanctum, and I'm actually more interested in the Roadhog battle here, as we've seen Roadhogs pull people to their death more often on this stage than any other. So it's Ube versus Torque, and so far today, they've both had notable Roadhog performances.
Well, we will have that hog-on-hog action. We will have... No, we're not going to have soldier-on-soldier action. In fact, that's getting swapped up here. So you take a look at the LG Loyal side. They're not even running the McCree anymore, though they were showing it to begin with. On this particular map on Sanctum, they're going to be running Hardest on the 76, and this is more to just help them win the poke war that you always see early on. There's both Reinhardts going to shield up on the stairs. We'll see how it goes out.
Tragically, no Junkrat here. Nicholas was on that before and was able to get pretty good boops to knock people off. They're playing a little more cautiously, perhaps because of that. Ube has taken a lot of damage, now takes a nap. So far, still battling on the stairs. It seems, though, that compLexity has perhaps one part of the shield battle. They do concuss over the top, no boop off the edge.
Well, compLexity is actually losing this somewhat heavily on the poke war, but it's going to be a Bionade coming out that heals everyone back up to full and lets them keep pushing the LG Loyal. But now LG Loyal switching up the litmus of the fight here, where instead they're going to be getting onto point, and they cap it. Their gamble here pays off. They're able to get this, and now compLexity fighting uphill as they try and bring this back. They have the nano boost onto Nesh. Nesh, of course, going to be trying to build the Graviton early off that, but not really working out here for compLexity. Nano boost getting very little done. He has the Graviton up, but you can't use it in this fight anymore.
Almost able to knock Hardest off the point, but that soldier agility got him over to the edge. A completely won fight for LG Loyal. They did end up cracking the shields late on that fight after they rotated on the point, but not enough. And LG Loyal won that so well that they're able to bank nearly every ultimate on their team. Only person who hasn't gotten it is Super Pluke, but you can't blame him. He's just had to hold the shield up the entire time.
This right now with the rest of his team as LG Loyal deciding to be pretty aggressive here, holding up front. There comes the Graviton and going to pull in 4. In compLexity, they're just going to eat this as Ube picks up 5, or is that 6? Everyone going down, now it's 6. Ube with all sorts of cleanup off of that Graviton.
Someone really, really intelligent once said that Ube was a very good Roadhog. I cannot recall who at this point in time, but yeah, just look at it. He's always, when he's on Roadhog, it's not just one hook here, it's not just a kill there. He gets those 3s and 4s. Now, yes, that was an ultimate, but Ube is really good at Roadhog. He should play it more often.
Definitely agreed. Well, compLexity now willing to turn the tides. They have a Graviton of their own. Graviton is going to come in. Hardest going to try and turn it around with Sound Barrier and Tac Visor, but the barrage goes in. Does not care about your sound-based protection in the least. And compLexity able to turn this fight right around, though. They have to cash in most of their power to do so, and LG Loyal going to have many cracks to reclaim this point.
This map is almost the antithesis of Oasis, as you get team fight after team fight after team fight, generally 6v6 and holding towards spawns, things like that. Oasis, it is a never-ending battle, often in the sky and on the ground, but we're seeing full team wipes every time these teams engage onto each other. As you mentioned, 83%, so a lot of cracks at taking this one back for Loyal.
We have rockets coming in here from Nicholas. compLexity not standing up front, actually just looking for more defensive space, and it's working out here. They take down Ube immediately, getting rid of that hook thread. Nothing on Nicholas here as he's looking for the boop over the ledge. Doesn't get it, but does land 2 direct rockets on the reel. So nothing too fancy here from compLexity, just lots of poke coming in as LG Loyal breaches the threshold, and it works out.
LG Loyal a little bit split up there too, only 2 on the point. Pretty easy pickings for Nicholas as he can avoid both of them. Not any threats to his Pharah on that point. Not many threats to the Pharah in general. Hardest is on that Soldier 76, but he's had a pretty quiet game on it.
Spree looking to crack this wide open. Graviton is in. Is the fall through going to be there? Ube once more whole hogging in, but gets slept in the middle of it. Only sells for 1, and that Graviton whole hog combo actually very ineffective. Only 1 kill here so far, and compLexity still very much holding on to this point. Torque is going to be down though, so 4v4 as Hardest now coming alive. Picks down 2, and compLexity now no longer able to contest this, going to be thrown back.
And that is 85, nearly 90% as they are jumping onto it, and some late staggers there. It is looking bad for compLexity. How are they even going to get back into the contest? Body blocking happening. The Graviton will grab them, but Torque dies during this. A barrage will come in. Can they touch it, though?
That was a beautiful barrage. Takes down 3, catching LG Loyal off guard. And now they are going to have way more people on the point. They're going to retake this, and after being down 80% to 0 here, Hex, compLexity is 1 fight away from taking this round back. This would be absolutely horrible for LG Loyal, and yet LG Loyal doesn't necessarily have a great way of dealing with the Nano Visor that's going to be gunning them down as they run in.
Pluke does have an Earthshatter, is going to have to find pay dirt with it. Regardless of who wins this next fight, it will be the last of the map. Here we go. They're going to fight on the stairs just like the map started.
Well, Torque is one to watch here. What flank is he coming out with? Because he can end this fight right now. We have Nicholas in the back, laying in the rockets. But what is Torque going to do as he looks for this Nano Visor? There it is, the Nano Visor, the boost. Oh, goodbye, Nicholas! Your jets don't work when you're not conscious. He's thrown into the pit. Torque getting killed on the side. What a disaster for compLexity. Losing both their DPS, not getting anything off the Tac Visor. And LG Loyal finding a way through. Oh my goodness.
As someone who plays a lot of Pharah, part of me is devastated. But as someone with a sense of humor, that's hilarious.
You know, the Jets don't work themselves, Hex. That's what we've learned here.
We have learned there's a finger on a button somewhere, some sort of neural network perhaps tied into those. Not entirely sure of the actual schematics of them, but he'd done so much work that entire round, too.
Pharah might want to consider having an omnic brain in her jet thrusters for situations where her own mother puts her to sleep and sends her into a pit. I mean, I just feel like that's a little bit harsh discipline-wise. I don't know about you.
It was generally nap time there. No Pharaohs on the field now, so no worries of having to be sent to bed early. Hardest going to be on McCree, so Nicholas will be very worried when he sees that happening, as Hardest shut him down so hard on King's Row.
Artist going to be a real focal point now that he's back on the McCree. Meza dives in, doesn't get the spores needed, gets taken down immediately. 2 kills here from LG Loyal, and really not a lot they can do to bring this back. Nicholas having his hands full here with Hardest, and now has his brain full of Peacemaker bullets, I suppose, as LG Loyal able to fully retake this point. Good start for them.
It will not surprise me if Nicholas changes off the Tracer this game, just given on what happened on Kings. It was that dominant and one-sided of a performance from Hardest, shutting down the flankers, and I think that is generally what they want him to do. Seeing all these dive compositions, if you can have a McCree that only shuts down flankers, you're in a good spot.
LG Loyal right now really much focused on the point. Now still in the backline, takes down Hedan, but I'm not sure it's gonna be enough because they lose both supports on the compLexity side. Ube and Spree combining to get rid of that support, so no one's gonna be healed here in compLexity, and you take a look at their health. Meza and Nesh not really able to continue this fight. far too low. You still have compLexity trying to break this in with Torque, and they're actually going to do it off Nicholas. So even with 2 members really low in the fight, they're able to bring it back via Nicholas coming in off that flank.
And Nicholas absolutely coming alive as that Tracer earns himself a pulse bomb in the progress. Ube, I thought, might make the unwise decision of busting out the Dragon Blade towards the end of that fight. We've seen him do that before, but he saves it. Both Genjis now with the Dragon Blade. They're going to cede high ground and just roll directly onto point. Nesh takes down Hedan immediately.
Hedan immediately removed from the fight. 2 kills here from compLexity. With Hedan going down, it's going to be rough here for LG Loyal. They have no source of healing. Ube very low, Spree very low, and yet still fighting here at the point. Torque, though, can clean this up with Attack Visor. He's definitely trying to save this if he can. Beat gets dropped here, and this might cause Attack Visor to come out. Now he's stuck here in the Graviton, and he just puts down the healing station. He's totally okay with it.
Healing Station can save an entire team from Gravitons at times. Nesh is going to clean up the remainder, get a couple of kills. Nicholas does die to Hedan, but that is it. Hedan gave away his position and was killed by Nesh for it. compLexity in pretty solid control. Going to take the high ground. Torque and Shake, all the ultimates up.
Ultimates are up here. So this is going to be an ultimate showdown coming into the next fight. So we'll see just how this breaks down. Although anytime you have Attack Visor up, it's very good against something that isn't running as much of their shields, because not everyone is hiding here behind blue. So Attack Visor coming out here from Torque. That's going to split off LG Loyal inherently here. And no, he's going to go to the backline. He wants himself an Ana kill. Hedan saying, please stop this. And he's actually able to live for a decent amount of time. Enough to drag out the Attack Visor, but the rest of the fight not going well because they're not getting healed by their Ana Hex.
Yeah, Hedan was just dragging behind as everyone rotated out in that shield. He saw the Attack Visor come down and decided to go back instead, hoping that he would forget about him, but no one forgets about an Ana that seems to present herself as a pretty easy kill, though Ana's never an easy kill. Took him all he had, but able to take it down. She's so important.
One thing that's interesting is that Hedan dies first as an Ana more so than other Anas, but that's not because he's playing badly. That's because teams specifically go out of their way to neutralize him. Next fight, though, underway. We see Hedan dying immediately again, proving that point just a little bit more. Pulse Bomb goes off, Dragon Blade is in, and compLexity just going to rip through the remnants here of LG Loyal. It's at 95%, so they have to find a way of stalling this out, but when you die that decisively, you're not going to get that option, Hex.
Not at all. compLexity looks to tie up the map. They do just that, 1-1 here on Nepal. These teams very evenly matched. We could be in for a long set today. Make me happy. I wouldn't mind a Game 5. We haven't had too many of them overall in the tournament.
Not a lot of Game 5s, a surprising amount of Game 4s, in part due to teams, a lot of draws going in on Anubis, but even when you don't have draws, we have had teams at least finding a way of taking a map even in tough situations.
Well, we'll see who favors this stage. After that, it's up to the gods to decide what stage we'll be going to for the remainder. It seemed that it was a different compLexity team there on Village, able to really control the high ground. Nesh had a nice game on his Genji. They're going to run Shake back on the Zenyatta, and this is a map that a lot of teams will run a Zenyatta on, specifically compLexity, though. The sightlines are a little bigger. He can hide a little better. Discord and 3 divers, not going to be fun for the other team.
All right, so both teams trading off here. Nesh finding Hardest immediately. Headshot shurikens directly in his face. Good aim, good luck there a little bit as well, but Torque picking out 2 in the beginning, and compLexity gonna take this very easily, and that's just a bit unfortunate there for Hardest, where it was great aim from Nesh, but there is always that variance factor there. Unfortunately, the variance led those shurikens directly to Tracer's head.
Yeah, triple tapped right off the bat. Does not feel good. Hardest, not deterred though, will come back out on his Tracer, but that means first control given up without even a real fight to compLexity.
Well, LG Loyal coming back in immediately, but they lose Ube just as fast. It's a bit of a discombobulated engage here. LG all over the place and not in the good way. compLexity taking them down 1 by 1. Down to 3 members here. Hardest going to look for some last moment heroics, and Nicholas not able to get away. I think he was hoping for a foul point, but no. Taken down at 6 HP. Still a dominant showing here for compLexity in terms of point presence. Torque actually being the rock in the back. 3 kills on this fight already, 3 on the last fight. And compLexity should be able to hold this on here, despite LG Loyal making it a little bit interesting.
Shake so good on the cleanup. DPS on the Zenyatta, so good. And when fights break down, Discord just gets that much better. People talk about McCree and Tracer being good when fights break down. So is Zenyatta when everyone can focus whoever's flying under that purple balloon of death that is Discord Orb. LG has to find something here because so far none of these pushes has worked. They're not going to have the ultimates here. Soundbarrier comes down.
Soundbarrier is in, and so is Attack Visor. Again, this compLexity exchanging ultimates to win this fight decisively, but it is 4v4. They haven't done it here just yet. Nesh gonna have to pulls out his Dragon Blade in all likelihood to make this a bit cleaner, as we see Hardest getting all sorts of cleanup in the back. Nesh can't even pull out the blade anymore. Not enough health. Goes down to Winston. So LG Loyal able to find a way through. The downside is now they're gonna have to hold for basically the remainder of the map.
Absolutely. Super Fluke, they're diving in, just trying to focus down Torque. Juggled him, had to use it because Torque has been a big part of this compLexity offense so far. They take down Ube, Transcend in, Dragon Blade in.
They're coming back in. The compLexity, they were able to stall that out with Meza, so it's not even a retake from LG Loyal, so this might be over right here, right now. Spree with the Graviton, able to take down Shake pretty early on there. We'll see if this is enough, though, as LG Loyal still better presence here in the point despite the compLexity stall. And here comes Ube. Has to pull out the Dragon Blade to actually let them take this point. And that's a big win there for compLexity, Hex, because they stalled it out, got up to 99% firmly, and made LG Loyal use everything they had just to maintain control.
Forcing out some ults, so LG Loyal, if they want to take this stage, has to win every fight decisively from here on out. No ults to work with on the compLexity side, but they've won some vanilla fights so far in today's set.
LG Loyal is going to have to win fights without ultimates, and they're going to have to win fights when they use less ultimates, which these are not good engages to be stuck in, but this is what they're going to have to win. They have no more margin for error. And for now, both teams trading out here on the outskirts of the actual shrine, 5v5, but Ube finding a way in, dash reset on the 2, making it more likely that LG Loyal is able to hold for this fight.
I'm just sitting back and enjoying Spree's Zarya. Top-notch, top-tier Zarya, able to survive in the corner despite all the pressure on him. So that's one. They're going to have to do maybe 3, perhaps 2 if they want to take this stage, but look good so far. Spree's going to have grab up in the next fight because he played so well there. Hadan also will have his charge if he finds a suitable target.
Right now, LG Loyal either needs 3 short fights or 2 long fights. So their odds to bring this back much better here. They also have ultimates to win this next fight evenly. Graviton is going to come in, pulls in 4, fall through. Immediately there's Ube again, just dashing back and forth, using dash resets to set the table. We'll have Dragon Blade up for what will be most likely the final push from compLexity here in just a moment.
Nicholas going off the cliff there, and this has been a pretty impressive defense after they finally pulled it back. 99% to 0 is how this began, and winner of next fight will be the winner of this stage and take a lead on this map. They do find the hiding 76. Torque was trying to set up a tactical visor.
Here comes the Soundbarrier in from compLexity. They're all in on this fight. They have to be Nesh immediately finding Spree. They're not going to have to worry about Spree's contribution. He gets 2, make it 3. Torque on the back with the follow through here. 3 kills here for compLexity. 2-1, but Ube bring it right back. Dash resets in the Dragon Blade, picks up 2. Both Genjis of both teams doing all sorts of work here. It's coming down to the wire, but compLexity just a little bit far ahead. Nesh winning the Genji and Genji battle, and compLexity going to retake the point. Pulse Bomb comes out here, Spree just trying to stall, but far too outnumbered to make anything happen.
Well, looking for a miracle here is LG Loyal. Trying to stagger back onto the point, very difficult to do on this stage in particular. compLexity will take the stage lead 2-1.
LG Loyal making it interesting at the very end, if nothing else, and they did play the fight previous to that pretty well. They gave themselves a chance at a relatively even fight at the very end. Unfortunately for them, though, Spree got focused down way too quickly. It was a combination of Dragon Blade and Nicholas catching him out, and so, though Zarya has a self-shield, it only does so much.
It has been a tale of Genjis, essentially, on Nepal. Both Ube and Nesh bringing the blades out and really pulling off fights and points. We do have another Pharah sighting. Nicholas going to be on the Pharah, going to do it without a Mercy. He's played a good Pharah on this map before.
We've seen him get some pretty key boops early on here with the Concussive Blast. We'll see if he can get that here again. Of course, teams generally aware of that, although as we've seen from previous games, it's not always a sure thing that you will be able to avoid it, as Nicholas is going to be looking for the Concussive Blast. No one going to bid here just yet, though, so both teams full strength as they do this poke war, but Super Fluke actually coming very close to dying there, Hex. Very low HP, and is taken down as Meza, they see the moment of weakness, they saw how low he was, and compLexity just charging right in, capitalizing on that early poke.
And as a dominant early fight, and even Hardest goes down there at the end as he was still peaking for whatever reason. Hardest so far, I think, as well as he's played, has a tendency to peak and gets punished for it here and there. But Hardest stays on that 76 regardless of losing that 76 versus 76 fight. Eyes through the window, going to call out which side they're running through, going to set up over there, maybe flank.
Well, Torque is certainly coming in on the flank right now. Meanwhile, LG Loyal just trying to push through, getting stymied a bit by the Reinhardt shield, and Torque off the flank, able to take down Ube. 2 kills here from compLexity, and LG Loyal exiting stage back, so to speak. Nothing more they can do there, even with a 93% Zarya.
I don't think stage back is the theater term.
It's not a theater term, but we're making it a term right now, because if they went left to right, they would have died.
You foiled me yet again, ZP. All right, they do get some poke here onto the shields. They're going to try to not go all in together. Ube was looking for the blind hook around the corner, unable to find it. They still are going to try to get Nicholas out of the sky. Nicholas perhaps a bit too far. Absolutely. Hardest tactical visors from the point. No, that's Torque tactical vising, but Hardest was taken out earlier. Tactical visors everywhere.
Well, the Tac Visor comes in, but Hardest is going to have a chance to Tac Visor on his own here in a moment to clean this up. Spree right now, holding onto his grab, doesn't think he needs it, but Dash does a grab in the back line that gets rid of Fluke. Not the highest value grab, but enough to keep compLexity in this fight. And now the question is for Hardest and Spree, do they burn ults now or wait? And, well, the answer for Spree made for him by Nesh as he is simply taken out.
You trade back and forth. No point taken for LG Loyal there. Still unable to fully win a fight. Going to be banking on this next one, though, because they have to, and they should have the ultimate's abilities to do it. However, Earthshatter could ruin their plans. A lot of for compLexity. It's been all compLexity this stage.
compLexity has been very dominant here. This is the final attempt for LG Loyal. Hardest. Nano Visor on the way. Not the best flanking angle coming out here. A lot of time being wasted. Finally looks towards the end and takes down Shake, but while that was going on, Spree was able to take down 2, so it doesn't matter that your Tac Visor didn't do much if you're creating a distraction that lets Zarya take down 2 people. Now 3. Spree, when LG Loyal needs it most, able to come in and help them retake this point. But Hex, they now have to hold here for the next 5 to 6 fights in a row. Easier said than done.
Absolutely, but there was a very economical fight is the important part of it. They only had to use that tactical visor. Everyone held on to the rest of their stuff. So compLexity going to be pushing into ultimates, and on this map, more difficult than it might seem.
Well, we've effectively reset here, back to beginning. Graviton, though, coming out here from Spree, going to pull in 2, but very ineffective as Nicholas was able to take down Ube early on. He wasn't there for the fall through, but the Earth Shatter, knocking down 3 members of compLexity. Fluke trying to keep the team on his back. Only results in 1 kill, though, because of the kills that went in earlier from compLexity, as Torque and Nicholas now going to finish up that back line, and compLexity about to take the paw right away from LG Loyal. They retake the point, they take the map.
Really late sound barrier. I'm not sure if Reels had it going into that fight, but 2 had already gone down when the sound barrier came in, and losing those 2 early on really ended up hurting them. They had ults up to use, but you can't use ults when you're dead. Ube's Roadhog looking to give the camera a kiss here. This has got to be that 6K.
This is the one time where Ube does not get ruined by the algorithm on his 6K. It happened the other time when he got 6K on his Genji, but not this time where he gets full credit. I will say, though, that his Genji 6K was more impressive because it was not set up by Graviton. He just made that happen on his own.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't it softballed in there, soft grabbed in there.
Sure.
I mean, because it was good. You can't say it was a bad play or anything like that, but it was definitely a team effort, and he just got a lot of great credit for that. But looking overall at the beginning of that map, first time we were on Sanctum, Ube, Torque, both on the Roadhog. How did that pan out?
Well, Ube got a lot of support there and was able to get the giant grabs, but not really all that notable as far as hooks goes or initiations. It's not what swung those fights. It was a lot of just Reinhardt shield poke, and of course Roadhog also still good at that.
Certainly, and I would say overall Roadhog on both sides here, there's games where you look at and you go, Roadhog has done everything. He has been the threat to get rid of. Roadhogs, when played by both teams, were reasonably effective, but they were not the real story there. Definitely more to be said over flanking damage on both sides, I would say.
Yeah, well, the other thing we did see a little bit of McCree. Hardest tried to pull that out. Didn't work out maybe as well as he wanted it to, but he did go on the Tracer as the backup. How did that end up panning out, especially on Village stage? Actually, we saw it mostly on... oh, great, now I'm going to have to remember the other one.
I feel like he probably should have played McCree more than he did, especially on Sanctum there, because Nicholas was running wild for the most part. The only reason they lost the first stage of Sanctum was that sleep dart towards the end. They were getting a little bit of poke on him, but I think he was generally pretty quiet. As he's been quieter since the first time on McCree. I think it's probably his specialist hero.
The thing, though, with hardest on McCree and why it worked on Kings Row and why it wasn't working on Nepal is that on Kings Row, particularly on defense, you can hold in very sneaky areas on McCree to take advantage of the part where you know that the Tracer not only wants to get into the fight, but wants to get into the fight from a flanking position. So you can really sort of cheat and go to certain doorways and just hope that you get a free pickoff. On a map like Nepal, it's much more free-flowing. Not only do they have better vision of where you are, but they also have more paths they can take. So he wasn't quite able to take fights on ridiculously good terms like he was able to do back on Kings Row. And part of that is why you see a little bit less McCree on control, especially in recent times, because teams are very good about putting multiple people on McCree at the same time, and you frankly have more opportunities to do so in a control map than you do in certain parts on a payload map.
I do think that's true overall, but that Sanctum stage in particular has been a stage we've seen McCree's operate on before because of that space artificially made. And then when you have the point, you generally see him hanging out in pack as well. Plays a role very similar to 76, plays the spots similar to 76, but as you mentioned, perhaps not as comfortable there.
Part of why you see 76 on McCree, though, in a lot of these reasons is that you do have a shield battle that goes on.
Yeah.
Soldier does far more damage to the Reinhardt shield than McCree does. So if you run a McCree there, you're saying, I want more power against flankers if they don't dive on me, which is a big if, and you're also giving up the shield war to some extent. So I understand why they wouldn't necessarily go McCree there if they didn't have other options to deal with the shield.
Well, and I think that talking about McCree, you defined it really well, and what we saw from Jake yesterday was he was finding positions, especially on Gibraltar, I would say, but a little bit on Nepal, where he would just get so much free damage. And it's a little bit harder on Nepal because of the way the fights pan out, because of the multiple access points. You're not funneling the team, onto a payload. Right. You're really just looking for options to kill everyone. We're not going to be seeing Gibraltar, though. We're going to be on Dorado, coming into map number 4, compLexity up 2-1 in the series, and it's back and forth. Are we expecting LG Loyal to pull it back once again?
The only information I really have on Dorado, Escort has only been played twice by compLexity. They've won Dorado and Gibraltar, so compLexity comfortable on this map.
I think for me, what's probably going to come down to here, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be a fair opening from compLexity. Yep. They're going to throw a lot of their eggs into the Nicholas basket. And conversely, for the side of this, I just said this wrong way. So compLexity's going to have Nicholas on there, and they're not going to be running as much in Nesh and the Genji, though we might see it there regardless. So we'll have to see.
Yep.
Yeah. We will indeed have to see, as it turns out. No, a lot of questions, but I like what we're seeing out of both of these teams, living up to all the hype that I built up in my own mind today, But then again, I romanticize games like this maybe a little bit too much. But there really is quite a bit on the line coming into this one. Is LG Loyal down 1-2 in the series? They're also behind one game in the event itself, and so they're looking to tie things up. And to do that, they're going to need to find victory here on Dorado as we're getting the teams ready. There's one final question I did have about Nepal that I just want to toss around just for a second, and that is we saw Nicholas on Pharah in Sanctum, and does that help you with that stairs fight at the beginning at all? I mean, we've seen some, of course, you see the boops into the pit, but it's not that's something you're banking on. How does that help you out? Well,
the Pharah is kind of an option select there, where you're trying to get rockets over the shield to poke people behind, but it's still pretty good damage to the shield. So either way, when you're running the Pharah, you have the ability to help with the shield war, but also if you land the rockets just right, really force the team back because it's AoE damage, people are relatively well clumped, and you also have the triple threat where you could also maybe knock someone into the pit. So there's a lot of contribution that Pharah does there early on, especially if you're not getting immediately bopped by hit scan characters on the other team.
Well, you saw the order of operations, as it were. You come out, you throw out your concussion right away. That didn't happen. You throw some rockets over the top. Did I do enough damage? Yes or no on the bridge tree. Did I do enough damage? If yes, Reinhardt charge. If no, time to break some shields.
We're doing some coding here, it sounds like. Everyone take notes. This is the flow chart that you need to be keeping track of when you're playing in your own games. But there's only one game that I'm worried about right now. It's compLexity versus LG Loyal here on Dorado.
Well, this is Dorado, home of the Lumerico Corporation, providing clean energy and definitely not corrupt in any way to the citizens of Dorado for a very long time. I was not paid to say this message legally.
Intimidated by neon-faced thugs, surely. I just don't find it that intimidating. Again, since the Batman and Robin movie, anytime someone paints neon on their face, they are no longer a criminal to me. They are a clown.
Yeah, and to top it all off, it's not really great for avoiding the police and those situations where you just go, well, what does the suspect look like? Well, he has a neon tattoo of a clown in a compromising situation. All right.
I don't know why you're describing my tattoo to the people on stream. It does not seem fair. I shared that with you in privacy.
Well,
CP.
I mean, it's not on your face, so.
Offensively, it looks like they want to run this dive composition, something that Loyal has actually been known for too. Nicholas on the Pharah over top. Torque will run DPS on the bottom with Tracer. Mezza's going to be the dive in. Nesh actually not on the Genji. We'll go Azaria instead. So not the as aggressive of a dive as we've seen from other teams, but still going to be able to try to get in there with the Pharah. That's going to be where it relies a lot upon. What does Pharah get done early?
Well, for Nicholas here, he doesn't quite have the coordinated engages that we see at Spree. It's a little bit more free-flowing, just looking for opportunities as they may come. But the defense here for compLexity going to play this, or offense going to play this relatively standard here. We'll see if Torque gets that back and do a little bit of restment. Meanwhile, for the LG defensive side of things, they're also just holding back and saying, all right, compLexity, come to us, and we'll see if Ube is able to get hooks to really mess with compLexity's offensive flow.
They gave up a lot of free push, led him through the archway without even firing a shot. Not sure how I feel about that as they do come in. Reinhardt's trying to swing at each other now. There is a Pharah over top landing some big rockets. Hook does miss. Nicholas will be in the sky still, for at least for now, still bloodless in the kill feed though. Nicholas almost going down. Nicholas does go down finally to Spree.
Nicholas finally falling in. I'm okay with that for compLexity. They did see that the hook was down. 8 seconds now rather than 6. Tried to make their way through, but they just weren't able to convert on the kills. And sometimes you just don't hit the shots even when you have a proper call to go in.
Well, Nesh gets himself hooked out before the fight even starts, and that might put an end to it. Have to wait for your Zarya to get back in there. Not ideal situation, and despite all the free push they did give up, LG Loyal is stabilized on defense. A couple of defensive ultimates up and ready as well.
So both teams here resetting. LG Loyal in a very good position here, and X Factor here is Torque, who is on Tracer. Usually you have Nicholas on, but Nicholas on the Pharah can't be the one to run it, so we'll see how this works out. Nicholas, though, eating a lot of poke early on, not getting healed up for quite some time, so compLexity being a little bit rough on keeping on the pressure, and that hook coming in on the Nesh. Once more, compLexity in a bit of a pickle as they're going to lose 2 people immediately, and they just have to back out.
Lost their tanks immediately again. Nesh unable to dodge the hook, and look at this bank of ultimates that Loyal has stored up, meaning they've been able to hold all of this without ever having to press Q. Although on the other side of things, about to hit all 6 too, we're going to have an ultimate fest incoming.
Well, this ultimate showdown is going to decide the course of this game. It's going to be either full hold here for LG Loyal or compLexity with a huge win and lots of momentum going the second. So this next fight, incredibly key here between both teams, assuming that they both use ultimates into it.
I actually want to see what's remaining after this happens. Graviton will open it up.
Graviton comes in, Spree looking for the fall through there, does get immediately, but there's the Earth Shaft from Fluke. That's going to set things up well. But for compLexity,
smart.
They decide that they're going to turn into a junk rush midway through. I think they were looking for an opportunity, but now the next fight is no longer going to be as big of a showdown, Hex. It's going to be compLexity with a minute left and a big advantage, so they don't get quite the windfall they would have had if they had won that fight ultimate versus ultimate, but they have a better chance of at least getting into the second stage.
Well, the 2 most impactful ultimates in the game were used. It was a Graviton and an Earth Shatter, and that's going to be coming at them from the other side now, as you mentioned, that they saved their ultimates there. There comes the grab from compLexity now.
Graviton in for compLexity. Hardest with the Nano Visor that can try and limit this. Takes out Nicholas immediately, but gets introduced to the ground via Earth Shatter and gets slept. So bad news bears here for Hardest, but the rest of LG doing okay in this fight. 4v4, still plenty of opportunities for both teams. But Mezza on top of Hardest, that is not the wake-up call you want to receive there. Just a hammer in your face, but Super Fluke drops his own hammer, knocking down 3. Fall through, not necessarily there though. A lot of damage done to this LG Loyal backline, but Hex still have an opportunity to come back in here and delay. It's not great, but compLexity has not won this here just yet.
No, Hidan staying alive and actually takes down Mezza with his grenade. His grenade meant for himself, took down the tank from the other side. LG Loyal has the numbers to get back on this point. Not getting any kills is compLexity.
No, they're not, and they even lose the Diva mech there early on, and this is actually starting to turn more in LG Loyal's favor. Hardest in over the top, finds Nesh. compLexity bleeding out their lifeblood as Tracer eats the sleep dart. Hidan, not only is he killing Reinhardt, he's sleeping Tracers. A wonderful backline set up there by Hidan, keeping LG Loyal in this. Now they're in a golden position to take Dorado and force map 5. And let me just sit here for a moment and heap even more praise on Hidan and just say, not only did he kill Reinhardt, he stayed alive under enormous pressure there, despite his team being down players, and then he gets a Tracer kill at the very end to help seal it. Huge plays.
That is what he's known for on the Ana. His huge plays have been how he made his name. The 360 mid-air shot onto Tracer, though, was rather beautiful. The Reinhardt, I'm not entirely sure was intentional, but since it's Hedan, I'll give him credit for it anyway. He was getting pressured pretty hard through a grenade at his feet. Reinhardt just happened to be around, but you take down your shields any way you can. LG Loyal with a pretty easy path to victory now if they can conclude first point. Well, there you see it, not even first point. Fountain, yellow box of victory, as we like to call it here. That's all they have to push it through. For compLexity, if they want to win this series, they have to stop them. Simple stuff.
And for compLexity, realistically, when you evaluate their dive defense, they never really have a shutdown dive defense. When they run it, they can buy a decent amount of time, but they're not very good at getting full holds off it. I mean, very few teams are, to be fair. I mean, you have to look towards a team like Rogue to really see a team that was able to bring it up to the next level for these sorts of defenses. So I'm seeing this by compLexity. I'm not filled with a whole lot of faith that they're going to be able to hold LG Loyal back, not even from first, but from halfway through first.
They might try a hold outside of spawn, being very aggressive with it, hoping to get back into the fight again. It's happened to them. They know it's possible that a team can hold you outside of spawn, being as aggressive as possible. That looks like where they want to set up. So they're going to try to take early fights and then get back for a second fight, not wanting to rely on simply winning one fight for the map.
The other problem I think compLexity has here, too, is that Spree has been far too consistent tonight to expect him not to get a good team fight winning Graviton. If he gets that, it's going to be LG Loyal's map.
Well, I think LG Loyal has played better tonight because they're playing their best heroes. It has been Ube on Roadhog a majority of the night and Spree on Zarya. But to start it off, Hardest does go down to Torque as this aggressive defense looks to continue to aggress. Super Ploop going down to Torque as well. Now they're going to dive in, try to punish them more. Nicholas takes out Ube. So far, defensive working in this very aggressive position.
Well, they bought themselves time, and more importantly, Spree got very little ultimate charge off of that. Most of his ult charge coming from pure time here than anything else at 10%. Their real problem is going to be they can win the next 3 fights and still very easily lose this game, but Reel's a little bit too far out, getting taken down by Nesh. So even though Loyal's in a good spot here, Hex, they're not necessarily engaging this dive defense particularly well right now.
No, and this dive defense, playing up front as they are, they will absolutely have a chance to come back and defend again because of how slow that cart is going to push. Now they're going to try to speed boost around the top and take away this high ground as they've had a very difficult time dislodging the heroes from up here.
And this is where LG Loyal is almost taking a page out of Hammer's book, where they're going more death ball against us, but Reels, again, cannot be dying this early into a fight. A huge, huge pick coming out here for compLexity that is, we'll see if it wins in the fight overall, but Hardest able to take down 2. This is actually pretty good for them, despite the rough start. Now, compLexity, even if they get kills, they need to back out more to Courtyard, and they don't have a lot of room to work with in Courtyard.
Well, they're pushing them back because they crack the shield. Nicholas goes in and Shake. They take down whoever was pushing the cart. Nicholas gonna have, or Torque rather, gonna have a tactical visor up for him whenever he wants. His defense is absolutely working out, and now they've got ults because they've been so one-sided these fights.
That is actually very strange that they weren't able to get more off the picks from Hardest. I guess compLexity, they doubled down, and it does work out. If they had lost even one more person there, that very well could have been the game. Torque, though, coming in over the top, has Tac Visor. They have Dragon Blade coming out here from Nesh, though, moving in. Not going to get too much off this. In fact, the engage is awful for compLexity. The late Tac Visor comes in from Torque, but this is going to be pretty easy to avoid from LG Loyal because 3 members of compLexity are already gone, and they have Ube sitting on what could be the finishing Dragon Blade and the map here for LG Loyal.
That tactical visor not ideal as Torque on the retreat gets taken down by Hardest. Now they're going to push these doorways looking for a miracle as compLexity. Dragon Blade looks to close it out.
Dragon Blade coming in here from Ube, and no, he just eats Winston's Tesla Can instead. That was very rushed, very sloppy, and might be giving compLexity a chance to get back onto this point. They do lose Joe Meister, so no 1v5 Lucio action this time. But compLexity very much back in this, but Nash not able to get away from Hardest. The cleanup is there. And now LG Loyal breaking it down. Only 2 people getting hit by that sound barrier, so not necessarily great. compLexity, though, actually getting back onto this point, but Torque going to fall. So we have a lot of fighting going on to the backline. Hardest looking for anything he can get here on the payload. And now with those 2 kills, this is looking all but inevitable. LG Loyal about to finish this out. compLexity not able to hang on here, Hex.
Primal Rage bought him a bunch of time, but now Primal Rage is going to be the closeout ultimate of choice for LG Loyal, knocking people off the cart and to their death. Hardest came on hard there at the end. We're going to a map number 5.
I will say that compLexity's defense was fine there. They even took gambles that they normally wouldn't take and succeeded in them, which we don't always see. Unfortunately for compLexity, their offense was miserable. They had multiple times where they had ult advantage and they weren't able to capitalize. And as a result, they get held here on first, and they open up the door here to LG Loyal to potentially take the whole series.
Absolutely. It's all going to come down to it. And Spree will get play of the game. We've seen some Winston plays of the game lately, just doing so much damage that the algorithm cannot ignore it. He's softening up those targets, and all the glory goes to Genjis and Tracers who are getting these kills in the kill feed. But a lot of it is because Winston has gotten everyone down to half and a quarter life.
Yeah, and they're calling on comps. Alrighty, I chipped them all down. Come in for the credit, everyone. Genji's best friend is a Winston, I think, in this case.
And worst enemy.
And worst enemy. It's a complicated relationship.
I will note that despite LG having a pretty good defense there and capitalizing on mistakes, I still very much worry about Ube's Genji there, because in a different game, he actually throws at the very end, because that Dragon Blade was very forced, went to the back, and got nothing done. I mean, he Dragon Bladed effectively before having good targets, and the target he ran into is his one natural soft counter in Winston. So on some level, Ube needs to calm down before Dragon Blading and find good opportunities to use it. He has had good moments, but he also has moments like that that just stick out very poorly.
Well, yeah, because another team, another situation, and they come back onto that cart, and it's going to be a very different fight. Of course, they were already up against it. They didn't have any room to come back and wait for that cart to push forward because it was right on the verge. Definitely a question, and especially because of how well he's been playing on Roadhog. I think that they switched there because they were having a hard time breaking through that high ground. But it's hard to argue that Ube's Roadhog is not a little bit stronger than what we've seen from his Genji. Outside of that, though, we did see Nick, Torque, and Nesh on Pharah, Tracer, and Zarya. And one thing I want to talk about that is normally we see Torque on 76 and then Nick on Tracer in the circumstances where they're just running the two of them. But because they started off with the Pharah, they ended up having to swap, and then you ended up having Nick on Tracer, or excuse me, Nick on 76. Do you think that affected their offense too much, or are they just as comfortable?
The levels when you have one over the other with those two in particular are like 55, 45, 60, 40. The difference between them is not that far. That's how compLexity has always operated. I talked to their manager a couple times. I'm saying, who would you run as Widowmaker? They're like, whoever's in spawn, whoever's easier. They say Nicholas is a little bit better, but they're fine with. That's how it is on nearly every hero for them. They do have a few specialists, but I don't think 76 and Tracer is that much of a fall off.
I think it's one of those things where in an ideal world, they would have had it be the other way around. But unlike LG, where LG, when they were swapping off between Icefell and Ube, back when Icefell was on the team, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Here, there's a logical reason, which is that you already had Torque on the Tracer. You already had some degree of ult charge. Yeah. Why are you going to make him swap just for preference sake there and lose the ult to all the rest? Because that actually, you can defend that swap there very easily, as compared to when you have the old LG situation where you would just see them open up a map in different formations for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, the only big hero pool difference, I think, is that Torque would run their McCree more often, and that Nicholas will definitely run their Pharaoh more often. Other than that, pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, pretty interchangeable indeed. And that's why we do see either of them on Tracer, as it turns out. The only other thing I had a question is we saw an interesting circumstance there on the round number 1 in both teams having 6 ultimates. And I know that there's a lot of situational aspects of this that make it hard to make any call as to what's the best choice. But when you're defense and you have 6 ultimates, of course, offense, you can try to junk rush and pull out ultimates. But on defense, are you trying to be proactive in using your ultimates, or is it better to react and wait for that? Do you need to get that first strike? Or is it better to save them and try to counter the ultimates coming in?
I think it's style, generally. Yes. I think it's based on what a team wants to do. A Hammers, or LG Evil, rather, would very likely go after it and force the fight to them, but they're so confident in fighting without ultimates that they could do it.
Well, I mean, it also depends on the situation, what you're dealing with. Yeah. What risk do you want to take? How badly do you need to win that fight? What is the time on the map? If you are going into, say, a final fight, then you do want to throw everything at it. If you're going to a situation where you feel you have a position of strength and you're willing to gamble a little bit more and go for more counter-punching, you can do that. If you feel like the other team actually has your number and you just want to get one more fight before the next stage, maybe you do throw everything into it. It really depends on the two teams that are playing and the read of the situation. There's no one definitive answer.
Yeah, and that's why it's a difficult question. And maybe on Dorado there, because they saved him a little bit more. They, were throwing out a few in each fight, but they were still reactive. They were waiting for complexity to come in. Do we think we're going to hold on this point? Can we use our ultimates to bleed out another 30 seconds to a minute, or do we think we can save them in full hold? Well, they did end up full holding, and I don't know if that was their ult usage necessarily, or a little bit of a mix of some weird play from complexity and just a lot of getting back. But we do have our next map. It is going to be Hollywood. The map that I think we thought we were going to see it a little bit more. A lot of teams, it's a little polarizing. A lot of teams are really good at it, whereas some teams struggle a little bit on it. So we haven't seen it as much, and when we have seen it, it's been a little bit of a blowout for a couple of those.
Historically, complexity does like Hollywood, but that history goes back to when they had Harblue, when they're running Sombra a whole lot. So it's really hard to say how this is going to go down. Obviously, complexity did choose this map because they just lost, so they're feeling a little bit better about Hollywood than they would be about Eichenwald. So to that, we can conclude that bit of preference, but we'll have to see. This has not necessarily been bad for LG in the past either, so I think it's going to be pretty even, much like the rest of the series as we go into this final map.
Well, I think it's definitely a pick against LG. And yeah, you mentioned in the past, but during this tournament, they're actually like 0-3 on Hollywood. They haven't played very well on it when they've been forced onto it. And I think that's a large part because LG I think they played more game 5s than anyone. I feel like they always go to 5 and they've done reverse sweeps and things like that. Yeah. But so far, complexity hasn't played it in this tournament. So it's definitely an anti-pick into LG Loyal, I would have to imagine. Again, and you mentioned complexity also not that great at Eichenwald, which is their only other choice.
Yeah, and I think that a couple of their opponents, when the selection has been against complexity, when they were not the team selecting the map, their opponents have been selecting Eichenwald. So, whether that be something that we've seen in scrims or just some knowledge there that we don't have, we're starting to get that knowledge as we're seeing some trends coming out. But this time, complexity, they are going to be bringing us into beautiful Goldshire Studios. Let's see what they can bring to the table as they're now 2-2 in the series. LG Loyal, they're looking to find victory to tie things up. While complexity, they're looking to bring things a little bit closer to the top of the pack at the end of this game.
Well, one thing I think is worth really reminding everyone here is that this is effectively, in many ways, a playoff game because complexity very likely to be the 4 slot, although who knows. But right now, if you had to project out, they'd be more likely to be the 4 slot, getting that last playoff spot. And LG Loyal, of course, is desperately trying to get that spot. If complexity is able to bring out the win here, it's going to make life very hard for LG Loyal, and statistically actually put LG Loyal back down to last place because Team Liquid does have the tiebreaker over LG Loyal. So to say that this map means a lot here for LG Loyal would probably be the understatement of the week.
Completely agree. At this point in the tournament, it is essentially now 5 teams fighting for 3 playoff spots because I cannot imagine a scenario in which LG Evil does not make the playoffs, already sitting at the top there with 6-0. We've got a Torb sighting on the field for complexity. Joe Meister is going to be on that Torb, so they are running a single pure support. Makes these early fights that much more important. The longer you let a Torb on the field, the harder it is to push into him.
And it also makes Shake the man of the hour right now because should Shake go down early, there will be no healing at all for complexity. And we'll see how LG Loyal goes in, but they get into the cafe very effortlessly here, and they get rid of the turret. So this is about as beautiful as an engage as you can get. Complexity already in rough shape to start out this game as Spree taking down the turret once more. Down goes Nicholas, and I'm not sure what's going on here at all positioning-wise for complexity, but they've given up a lot of space. They gave up the cafe almost for free, and now they're stuck holing up in the cafe as the rest of LG Loyal gets onto that point, and they're not getting anything done kills-wise.
It's been confusing for the most part, but the fact that LG hasn't taken more advantage of this is also worrisome. Although most of the way 2 ticks already done, they did take out Spree, who was causing them a lot of problems. Now Torque's gonna come back. He's got Tactical Visor trying to bring this back.
Tac Visor versus Dragon Blade, and the Tac Visor doing more work. Torque able to pick up 3 in a fight that was going very much the way of LG Loyal, and it's good on complexity to come back in from the flank and bring that back, but LG Loyal, after having such a huge advantage, both positioning, on the point, ultimate-wise, to give that up, that's just not finishing your plates.
We've talked about how it takes them too long in fights, which is good on defense, bad on offense. They had a lot of free reign to do whatever they wanted over the top. Spree wasn't able to capitalize and get as many kills, taking too long to get kills. Perhaps you can blame the turret for distracting them a little bit, but this is classic LG. They should have won that fight, took them too long, and now they give the defense another chance.
Sunbear coming in, LG Loyal again, investing the resources in, diving into the cafe easily once more. Meza already out of this fight here for compLexity, 5v5. Torque, though, still a threat in the backline. He's already taken down Ube. No one is on him at the moment, but here comes a barrage from Spree, looking for any fall-through kills. Defensive Graviton comes in, doesn't really do that much, as LG Loyal, this time around, should be able to fully cap this out.
Resurrection happened in that fight as well from Hedan, able to bring back those heroes and secure the fight. Hedan will switch off of that, so Spree's gonna have to do it on his lonesome as they enter into the Westworld phase of the game. Hedan, of course, will be shooting him a little bit, but not necessarily the carry. Spree changes off onto the Zarya. I like that choice. They've done the best work when Spree is playing Zarya.
All right, and compLexity now going to try and reset up here on the defense. And Torque actually getting forced off the high ground from that Bionade, so fairly important there. The rest of compLexity, though, getting ready of jumping in off the rooftop. They're going to fight this on the ground, but Torque not getting killed there off that hook. Ube unable to really finish his play. The rest of the LG Loyal wasn't in position, so compLexity going to get a moment of breather.
Credit Nesh for saving the life there. Divas, their work is very much appreciated by the people saved by them, but perhaps not always seen on stream. Diva able to help him by putting the defense matrix in front of him after he gets hooked in. But you're right, they absolutely are able to catch their breath now able to hold up front here, which will allow them to lose a fight and still be able to hold second point. So playing with fire, though, trying to bait out this hook.
So LG taking this really on the ground here, and compLexity more than willing to fight them on the ground. Both teams ignoring the high ground. Torque coming in up the gut. Nano visor used, only takes down one, but when that one is Hedan, it does really put a crimp in the LG push.
Absolutely does. Hedan unable to hit this bio grenade that he launched earlier all the way through here, so it's going to allow Torque to get to this high ground. Now they took the fight on the ground. They're going to move things to the top. Not a whole lot of heroes able to contest the top for LG Loyal, and when I say not a whole lot, I mean zero at all. They don't have anyone to take high ground away.
And this is just an awkward push. They're going to give him the sound barrier, but I don't like their positioning at all. They're not in a position to really convert kills. And now the second sound barrier comes in. Of course, if you can not lose anyone, a second sound barrier, way more effective for winning the fight. Still 5v5 on the point, though, so compLexity not necessarily taking full advantage either. Both teams struggling to convert their kills, but Torque on the Ube. 4v4, still good push coming out here from LG Loyal, so I think compLexity played the ult part of that better, and now finally they are hitting pay dirt as Torque picks down 2. Make it 3.
Overall, Torque was left alone on the high ground, softening up a lot of those targets. He was able to finally convert those kills. Elevator timing lines up just right for him, but leaves Shake wanting a lift up top. He's going to have to wait for the next cycle if he wants, and they're going to hold up top again. It becomes a shooting gallery. They take so much damage on the way in. They don't have anyone to take this high ground away. There's a switch, as Hardest will switch over to the Diva, and it looks like they're going to try to take the slow ride of the elevator. They're not going to ignore high ground this time.
I'd love it if Meza just used Primal Rage here and knocked them all off. I don't know if that would be the smartest move here, but it would be hilarious. And no, Meza's not going to do that. Self-destruct comes in over the top and does take reels. The alley-oop over in from Nesh. And already, LG Loyal down 1 to start this fight, and that has just put them in a very awkward position.
Nesh able to get away from that hook as well, saves his mech on Zarya. The kills are coming now for compLexity, and they have ults. They only had to use the one to really stop that fight early on. Nice self-destruct over the top. And it seems like LG Loyal doesn't know what they want to do. Do they want to take high ground? Do they want to fight low ground? Do they send just Hardest up?
Well, they were taking low ground the entire time it wasn't working out, and then the one time they do go high ground, they get hit by a well-placed Diva self-destruct. So I think they had the right approach last time, but now they're going on the ground once more, putting a lot of faith in the Spree here to land a Graviton to set this up, or Pluke. But look at how they're just looking everywhere here. There's no degree of focus at all. Pulse Bomb comes in from the back. That's able to take down Hardest, and this looks like a thoroughly confused LG Loyal team right now.
Well, where would you put a Graviton right now?
I know, like, everyone's looking everywhere. They're actually looking in 5 different directions at the same time. This is, I don't even know, but Torque is going to come in over the top. Tac Visor on the way. He's going to mow down this confused and dazed LG Loyal team. Yikes. 15 seconds left remaining. Now we'll see if they can even get on the cart.
Nesh might toss another one over the top. Nesh has actually looked very good on this D.Va. His survivability has been impressive getting out. The mobility usage has been good. Seems like they are just dominating this high ground. They're going to have to come in staggered and try to get the cart. Torque trying to shut it down. Desperation time. Not looking great for LG Loyal.
Well, the Graviton does come in pretty late here from Spree, but there's the self-destruct by Nesh, taking down 2. My goodness, LG Loyal definitely going to get stopped right here. And I gotta say, Hex, we've seen a lot of different looks from different teams, but LG Loyal there, that was actually just ridiculous because you could take a screenshot of certain points in that and you actually just see every member on the team looking in a different direction. That was, that cannot happen in a competitive game.
It did hurt my brain a little to look at. compLexity, though, give them credit. They were completely spread out. You can't use the giant ultimates that you've been setting up all game. Almost immune to CC because no one wants to use a grab on just a Winston who can probably jump out of it, just a Tracer. There's not a lot of great targets. You don't want to use Earthshatter on that either. So compLexity made their opponent thoroughly confused, but I think LG Loyal needed to take high ground at some point. If you have to switch heroes to get a Winston up there to do anything.
I agree that conversely, compLexity was using terrain very much their advantage and keeping LG Loyal offset. But at some point, to me, the bigger story there is LG Loyal just needs to pick something to go on and commit to it, not we're going on the ground and we have no idea what we actually want to deal with. Because that's the option they chose, and it led to them getting held on second.
I don't know if they chose that second part. We also want to have no idea how to deal with it. Was probably not in their team meeting. But they're going to have to go all in on this first point because they did not get very good push onto second. Very likely why you see the Symmetra here coming out from Reels.
So the Symmetra is coming out, and I'm actually okay with this because I think that LG Loyal's real chance now of taking the series is getting the hold on first. I think if it goes to second, they're not going to be anywhere near as successful in sufficiently confusing compLexity. I just don't think that's going to happen. So they're going with the Symmetra here, which of course is a weaker first point defense in the beginning, but much stronger should you get your ultimate up. So if they are able to win this first fight and they only need, say, a hook from Ube to do that, they might be in a good position to go for that first point hold.
Gonna play a little aggressive out here, trying to get some free poke in. I always try to look at the charge that Symmetra ends up getting for free. Some teams better than others at taking out those sneaky sentries. 10% so far for Reels, but this first fight, as you mentioned, going to be very important. No Pharah from compLexity, which I thought we might see come over the top. Instead, a very ground-focused Shake will be on Zenyatta as well.
Shake will be on Zen, and take a look here at LG Loyal right now. They're just all over the place on defense, but Nicholas gets caught out early. Almost vintage Nicholas Tracer there and being a little bit too aggressive. I mean, that used to be his flaw in Tracer where he died early on too often. And now this is going to not only delay things out, but give Reels a chance to get some very important charge, although
he's not hitting orbs or anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, the problem there is that you take a look and he's only 32%, so everyone on LG did their job there, aside from Reels, arguably.
Difficult to hit the orbs that you're used to. It was much better to get charges up against tank compositions because they're just going through small and they're going through chokes, but very difficult to hit those against dives. Hedon also with almost his boost up. The hook does go out, misses the Winston on the dive in.
Winston diving in here for compLexity. They still have an opportunity to do this before the teleporter comes up. Hedon, though, already has a nano boost. Probably gonna go on Pluke, but no, Pluke goes down. He's not able to be saved. Hedon not able to get in on him. It's a good opening here from Torque, and now Torque in good position over the top, finds Pluke as well. And suddenly, this is a very good chance here for compLexity to take this point as Hedon goes down, Torque ripping it wide open, catches Hedon with the errant Helix rocket, and now a Dragon Blade for good measure just to remove the cafe of the defenders. compLexity, 4 minutes, almost 5, to bring this in to the yellow box victory, and it's only halfway through second, Hex.
Torque already going to prioritize taking high ground. Look at that. He really wants to be up there. Missed the shuttle on their way up, but really cute kind of maneuver to get up there. Going to be peppering in all sorts of damage into the back line, and they're going to try to use the same strategy they did on defense, make them look in 5 different directions.
Nice right now, a little bit of harassment in over the top, and right now, Swan's payload is moving. compLexity is happy because if it gets close enough, they'll only need to take one fight Here comes the Sound Bear. They're looking for that fight right now. Hardest already out of the equation. Nesh moving in. Fluke just surrounded by enemies on all sides, and he not in a good place either. The dive from LG Loyal not happening at all in a good way. Just everyone stuck out on an island. Only upside here for LG Loyal is that they will get perhaps one attempt to go in on this, but they don't have much time. They do have to force the issue. We'll see if it works out.
They're going to have to force it, absolutely, but high ground still very taken from this team. Cart is being pushed 3x desperation time for LG Loyal. Don't die with ults, boys.
Well, here comes the nano boost on the Hardest. He's coming in off the flank. The tack visor hitting its marks. 2 kills while doing all sorts of damage to the back. compLexity not going to win it on this fight, but Hex, they have plenty of opportunities to bring this forward.
3.5 minutes. They're going to stagger out. Wow, Nicholas actually pulse bombs the Diva. Torque's still in this battle. Somehow gets his own field, but also eats a Helix to the foot. That is a very late fight. The Mez is still in here. This is scrappy. I would have liked to see a full reset from compLexity unless they can pull this back right now.
compLexity's just burning time right now. Yeah, they maybe could get the Tracer Miracle, but it's far more likely that they just chain deaths. Either though, Nesh moving in, gets bionated, way too low HP-wise, under fire. What? Why are you kidding me? Why? Oh my goodness!
That is unforgivable.
Oh.
Moment of silence for LG Loyal. Maybe Joe Meister did it. Maybe he booped them off the cart at the end. Maybe he got around. No,
it doesn't matter. They had so many people still in and around to not be on the payload there. I gotta say, guys, retire your C9 memes here. That was far more inexcusable than what C9 had did in Apex.
To lose a series, too.
Yeah, that's the worst part about it, the pain. Well, and they had just
nullified. It is now the LG Loyal.
They had just nullified the Genji Blade, largely.
compLexity was on the verge of throwing that, arguably.
Yeah.
They were all just coming in scattered-wise. The Blade wasn't getting anything done. He was about to die.
Theory. Calculated. They knew that was going to happen the whole time.
No, I can't even entertain that for a moment. No, it's
calculated.
Well,
no,
here's a replay of
let's
another
see that here
view
again.
of what happened here.
Spree left.
Why did Spree leave? Spree, why did you leave? I understand there's a Dragon Blade going on, but you had 3 other people. Spree, his instinct was to help with the Dragon Blade, but you saw so many people there. It's fine. Honestly, it's fine. Just keep one person on the point.
Someone has to be designated babysitter at some point. You don't leave the cart no matter what. If you need help, call it out. Comms have to be good, but someone... I'm saying this to everyone in this tournament because this is back.
This is not the first time it's happened this week.
Someone has to be babysitting. It's brutal. There's no other way to say it. That's brutal.
Well, you know what? I don't want to beat a dead horse too much. I think it's very apparent what needed to happen there in that last fight. Specifics, maybe not, but let's take a look at that map at large. So first of all, I want to go back to the very beginning and look at Torb. Joe Meister playing that Torbjorn. How does that work on first there?
Well, the way that Torb is supposed to work is that it's another threat that you have to deal with. You have to be a little bit more conservative on your dive-in. Unfortunately, the way compLexity was set up, they gave up the cafe for free, which is also pretty nice cover from the Torbjorn turret. So
they set it up in a strange spot. They put it across from where you usually see it now, so it was generally just supposed to be a distraction turret, and then I think he was going to try to set it up in the back.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. You saw them coming over the top. They were looking for it right away, but you do have to put something on cafe. It's one of the best spots to hold, which is why, since the history of Hollywood, somebody's been sitting in cafe.
And I actually think that Farah did a good job of dealing with that, but they just weren't able to actually get enough kills with it and on their first attack, and so they didn't quite get it. But really, I think the theme of this map, if it's not going to be stay on the card, the secondary theme is going to be Torque on high ground, 76, and they just did not know how to deal with it, the side of LGL.
LG was confused.
Yeah.
That is the simplest way of describing that situation, and you only need to look at 5 heroes looking in 5 different directions to accurately describe that point.
Conversely, Torque's 76 has gotten better and better as the tournament has gone on. Both Nicholas can play too, but so let's say complexity's 76 has gotten better regardless of who's playing it. And I think they should play that map more often. I really like that strategy. Perhaps it doesn't work as well against other teams, but being very spread out over top, making them pick a direction. And then when they weren't getting the kills and the car's getting too much free push, all collapsing on it, getting kills, they look good on that map.
Well, and for a while there, we weren't seeing as much high ground usage in the 4-tank meta. You know, you would just barrel through on the bottom. But in this case, you've got 76 just getting free damage on the top. And as you mentioned, he's been getting better and better. You've got to find a way to deal with that.
It forces the composition to either change or lose, and they refuse to change. They did put hardest onto Diva at one point.
Yeah, he like tried to get up there.
But you can't, then he was alone getting up there, so you either have to use the Diva to knock them off up there, you take the elevator up, something had to change.
The one thing I will say is that the one time they did go for LG's offense, the time they did go high ground, which could have been fine, it's just Nesh had a very good, well-positioned Diva self-destruct that just the tail end caught reels. So that was a very good play, but it also sort of scared LG from going high ground again, and it shouldn't. They should have gone high ground because them going through low ground, they were confused. They had no direction. They didn't know where to go. And it's not that you can't go low ground. It's just they weren't able to focus in on one thing.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a few things that result from that match. And one of them, which we haven't talked about at all yet, is it actually technically guarantees LG Evil their spot in the playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, we are not expecting them to lose their next 4 games, but if they had, and somehow LG Loyal was able to win all of their games, starting with this one, then we could have seen a tiebreaker for that last 4th spot. And so no matter what, though, LG Evil, they're playing with house cards, or house money, house cards. Well, they're always playing with house cards, I guess. If you're looking
You can't bring your own
always
cards
breaking
in.
their card games.
I
Clearly,
hope they're
that's how
playing
they're
with
winning.
house
You
cards.
cannot bring your own cards into a casino. Trust me.
Okay, this is tips for life.
I saw you get thrown out.
Yeah, going to go gamble some this weekend. So now I'm not going to get thrown out. Thank you. But no, the other things that I guess result from this, compLexity now 3-3. So that puts them in 3rd place. Immortals is going to be facing off against Renegades at some point. That was the match we were going to see tonight. And so they could potentially tie it up, but compLexity, they're right there in the middle, and they're making a good case for maybe doing something
They started 0-2, let's remember, and they started with some tank issues, and maybe these are the tanks they're going to roll with, but I think as far as teams that will play that role of, I hope we don't draw them in the first round, I'd put compLexity up there because of their inconsistency. Actually works to their advantage that they do, and we've said this about compLexity since the dawn of time. They can beat anyone, they can lose to anyone. They do finally look like they could beat some higher-end teams. Maybe, maybe not. They're getting better, though. They're getting better every time we see them.
Here's the problem, though. compLexity really needs to find a way of getting up to the 3 slot, which will not be easy because they would have to displace either Immortals or Renegades. Because right now, of course, the way these things work, the 4 slot gets the happy, fun experience of going against LG Evil immediately. And even though compLexity maybe is building up spoiler potential, I don't think they want to see LG Evil anytime soon.
Right.
So
Delay
I
it.
think getting in the number 3 spot is probably really good. Staying as 4 while it gets you into the tournament and it is double limb, still not great given who you're up against.
Right, but given how Immortals and Renegades are playing lately, they could easily fall.
Yes.
And compLexity could easily get to that 3 spot, and then you have to face compLexity. They, like I said, they've shown improvement constantly after the first week, so.
Yeah, no, I am loving what I'm seeing from them. If Team Liquid is a team we always wanted to believe in, compLexity coming into this one, a lot of us didn't have very much belief, but they're starting to make believers out of me. Well, let's actually, while we're talking about the standings, let's take a look at the field as it is. So LG Evil, of course, still on top at 6-0. I feel like that's going to be something we're going to be talking about a lot throughout the rest of this event if their play continues as it has. Renegades, they're at 4-1. That is a strong showing in their first couple of weeks. They have wavered a little bit in their play, so they're showing some vulnerability. We're going to see if Immortals can take advantage of that, as the compLexity is at 3-3, Immortals 2-3, and LG Loyal and Team Liquid at the bottom of the pack. So we really are going to start to see more and more battles for the middle of the pack. They're trying to get out of that 4th seed, as compLexity and Immortals right now are battling for that. And we're actually going to see some interesting matches next week, and I think they bode pretty well for compLexity. Let's actually just look at next week's schedule. You can see there that on Tuesday and Wednesday, compLexity is facing off against the bottom of the pack, and Team Liquid and LG Loyal. And looking at the rest of the schedule, you've got Immortals facing off against Team Liquid. LG Evil will be facing off against Renegades. And this is one I think we've all been waiting for, in that Renegades, this is the first time they're going to be facing off in the first versus second matchup. We're going to see LG Loyal face off against LG Evil in a pure LG battle. And I'm curious to see how some of the new roster changes from Loyal impact that one, although we're all kind of waiting for LG Evil to continue their reign of terror. And then to close out the week, of course, we've got that compLexity game versus LGL, but then Immortals will be facing off against RNG. So they're actually going to be potentially facing off twice this next week, depending on how that first matchup works out.
Next week is where Renegades could fall pretty severely. I will say that it's going to be a tough proving grounds week for Renegades. They either solidify themselves at the top of the pack or they experience a fall and compLexity and Immortals clean up from the ashes.
I actually look at the very first game of next week, Team Liquid versus Immortals. Liquid is a team, in all the jokes aside, they play close with everybody they play against. Immortals has not looked like the team that we thought they were going to be coming into this tournament. They have faltered a little bit, and that could put Immortals at 2 wins and 4 losses, Liquid at 2 and 5, going down and into those lower ranks. So it's an important game for Immortals, and it could be a close one.
And it brings Team Liquid a little bit closer if they're able to find victory, especially because Renegades is going to be facing off against Immortals here. And, well, I mean, if you're looking at the standings, Immortals certainly not favored to win that match. A lot of very important games coming up next week as we're going to be going into week 4. That's the close of week 3. Do we have any final thoughts before we bid the audience adieu?
Team Liquid will probably be 1 game away from getting into the playoffs, and it'll go very close. That's my prediction.
Predictions.
I hope Detroit gets power back.
So
yeah, this is important. Yes, power and internet. If I know any of these players, they're probably missing them. And of course, we haven't been updated on that, but I think that a lot of people wish Detroit had their power back. Well, with that, I guess we'll leave you to it. Make sure you're following us on all of our social medias. Twitter, it's going to be at Game Carbon. We post a lot of highlights throughout the matches. We're also going to be posting our week recap videos and other highlight videos as they come through. And then, of course, the schedule, standings, everything you'd need to know about the event is on our website. That's just carbon.gg/OCS for this event. And I hope to see you all on the stream next week as we'll be kicking it off once again on Monday night at 5:15 PST. This is Gilfrost here with Hex and ZP, and we're closing it out for this week. See you all next.
Could be the key here, going directly onto Ana, takes down He down immediately. Well executed, finds Hardest. It's a 3K here from Nesh, going wild on Genji. About to make it pretty aggressive here, holding up front. There comes Graviton in, going to pull in 4. Let's see, they're just gonna eat this as Upe takes up 5, is that 6? Everyone going down, now it's for this Nanovisor. There it is, Nanovisor, the Buzo. Oh, goodbye, Hunter ultimates to use in the game, but he's looking for the dive, takes down that.